It is election day, everyone. Get excited. We are less than 3 hours away from, of course, multiple states determining who their votes are going to be going to in, of course, this presidential election. Tonight, we have an insane live stream ready for you guys today. Not only are we going to have special guests, we have a new setup here with people that are going to be chiming in from none other than Mar-a-Lago. We have boots on the grounds taking place there. We have others at Patrick Bet-David's party. We have on-site individuals that will be breaking us down exactly what's happening with these election results. Now, on top of this, guys, we are in a live trade, as you can see on the screen here. We have hedged our positions here with a small leverage short position on Bitcoin, and we'll be analyzing these markets as we head into this road of uncertainty. So tonight, there may be multiple swing trades we take together. Hopefully, we'll be profiting immensely off, of course, the volatility. But more importantly, we are about to figure out who is going to be the next president of the United States. So I want to start off this stream with over 500 people already watching here, getting excited for tonight. Let's put a poll into the chat here. Who do you believe is going to win the elections of 2024? Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? Now, I have to say this just to start off the stream here, guys. There's already a lot of articles coming out that are saying, hey, Trump might actually win more states than expected, but the victory is not here, guys. This is going to be a very close election. I personally do not expect any results to be finalized tonight. I'm expecting multiple states to come out and say that, hey, we need an extra 24, maybe 48 hours to count these votes. So we're breaking down everything that's happening with polling. I will, of course, be breaking down what the actual electoral map will look like live with you guys. There's multiple different sites that are analyzing this. Right now, of course, it is 0-0, but 7 p.m., okay? We are less than what time it is, 4:40. Nearly only 2 hours away. There is going to be a lot of volatility in these markets until then, but we're less than 2 hours away, essentially, until we actually start seeing these votes register. So get excited. This is the most hyped up election day in history, and I think it's no better to do it with than, of course, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Drew from the basement here with me today. It's been a long time, brother. How are you doing today?
Oh, he's way too short. Wait, we haven't adjusted those cameras yet, so yeah.
He's actually only 4'11". Yeah, you're 4'11". You actually sit on stilts in the basement every single morning. No, we'll be adjusting these two guys. We have chairs today because, yeah, I don't want to stand for 8 hours.
Yeah,
and by the way,
no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying we're adjusting the whole studio, moving all the cameras and stuff. So bear with us. It's going to be a little bit of a different pace. We're going to be probably live until they call it or midnight, whichever comes first. I have a feeling it might be midnight. So
yes.
Yeah, we're going to be hanging out, having fun. No, oh, Drew's muted. Yep, there you go. You're unmuted, Drew. Sorry about that.
So I'm miniature and muted. There it is.
He's mighty.
It's all right. There I go.
Mighty but tiny. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so first things first, guys.
Well, hold on. We got to get the side. We got to work the sidekick in too. So.
Hey, we got we got a big date coming up this evening. We're going to be here all night. So the question is, have you voted? Which way do you think it's going to go? And we should put a wager on. Are we going to get before, or is it going to be today, or will it be?
There you go. Yeah,
we'll see. I think it's going to be later this week, but who knows? I would love to see it tonight. But first things first, guys, if you're on Twitter, make sure you like and repost. And of course, if you're on YouTube, hit that like button and share this with your friends, your families, etc. Anybody that's watching will be, of course, analyzing everything every step of the way. And if you do so, you'll have your chance to, of course, win $50. I'll be choosing multiple winners throughout the nights here. But on X, guys, if you're reposting our live stream, you will be entered for your chance to win that free $50. And we'll be choosing multiple different individuals. Hopefully, you'll take that $50 to bet on the markets coming out of who is elected. Again, if Harris wins, guys, we're going to have a very different strategy than if Trump were to win. So understanding and being prepared for what these markets are going to present is more important than ever. Of course, guys, if you're in the free Telegram chat, if you guys have been following this channel, we are hedged. We did get stopped out of the position yesterday. A lot of people made a ton of money, though. It came right down to, of course, the exact support level that we are looking for. I drew out this exact pattern here, said if we don't hold 66.6, we will get a bounce back up into this market. We re-entered a new short position very low. Now, this isn't here for us to, make a ton of money. If it plays out, amazing. But this is simply a hedge for these positions if you've been watching us and following us on YouTube. The whole idea here is if Harris does win, and I believe we will see downside due to the uncertainty in the markets here, if no outcome is officially determined tonight, we will be hedged to at least gain 10, 15, 20% on that portfolio position for our Bitcoin. If Trump wins, look, I'm cool with getting stopped out because that means all of our altcoins and our fundamental plays are going to rise. So this is straight up a hedged position to make sure we're ready for either part of this market. But Drew, how are you feeling today? Is there any hope in these markets?
I'm loving, honestly, what I'm seeing here. Like Aerodrome, really coming out of the gates, the strong resurgence. I was really happy to see Tau, Potensor Tau, Aerodrome, Dogecoin, ASI. It's been pretty nice to see these altcoins on their resurgence here, and I'm having a lot of fun with my Aerodrome position for sure. But really, I feel like the uncertainty, if they choose to like hold off on the certification, then I think I could get even juicier entry points on these things. And really, you know, the base ecosystem is something that I'm watching here. Moonwell, one of those new up and coming projects on base that I'm looking for a little bit more pain on this chart, and hoping to get it within like the 6, maybe 5 cent range. I think this is going to be a really good grab. And then I'm going to get an alien base on base chain as well. So I'm going to use the uncertainty to buy up and kind of fill up my bags on base chain projects.
Yeah, I'm very curious. Type 1 in chat if you hold more Bitcoin than altcoins. Type 2 in chat if you hold more altcoins than Bitcoin, because man,
I'm definitely heavier on Bitcoin than altcoin.
The volatility today has been quite insane here. We're watching Bitcoin now get a little bit of another drawback. But of course, there's a lot to news to break down, guys. So who's going to win, of course, these elections? Let's look at what's trending here first on Twitter. We didn't end up signing back into your... I might have to have you do that while I just talk to the stream here. We take this off the screen so we can sign back in. But I'll start with this, okay? Of course, if you guys didn't see, Joe Rogan did end up endorsing Donald J. Trump as of yesterday, which was a huge moment in this election cycle out here. For you guys that don't know, you know, of course, Kamala Harris denied ending up going up on Joe Rogan's podcast. He did 44 million views with Donald Trump. There's estimates of upwards of actually 70 million in total, but 44 million views off the one podcast alone. Kamala Harris can't even pull a million on, of course, Breakfast Club. Now, this doesn't mean Trump's going to win necessarily by a landslide whatsoever, but what it does go to show is that Joe Rogan's been extremely, not only independent, but vocal about allowing both candidates to participate on top of his podcast. He got denied, of course, by Kamala Harris. They said that she wanted only to do an hour and he had to fly to her. That's not how the podcast works. He wanted the full 3 hours. Since then, Elon Musk, JD Vance, and yes, one Democrat did go on, which was John Fetterman, of course, a congressman from, I don't want to say Virginia, I'm forgetting which state it is.
He's like Pennsylvania or something.
It's East Coast for sure. Yeah. You guys would know who he is. He doesn't wear suits. He's very more casual. And he couldn't answer a lot of questions on immigration. So this actually pushed Joe Rogan to be red-pilled. Yeah. Which is huge. A lot of people think he's a conservative. He is not and has never been a conservative. He's been very independently leaning left and a Democrat for the better half of his last decade.
Harris said that she didn't have time to fly to Rogan's, but she had half a day to give up to SNL to host Saturday Night Live right afterwards. So it really, the excuse that they made that she wasn't willing to take all the time out of the day, 3 hours to go talk to Joe Rogan, but she has a whole half a day to go over to SNL. It's just kind of weird picking and choosing her spots. And she probably was just a little bit worried about Jamie's fact checking and all of the pressing questions that Joe Rogan would probably be giving her. So.
Yeah.
Can I chime in on that too?
Of course.
Because one of the things I saw just minutes ago was Dana Bash on CNN was discussing that she didn't think that had enough to really introduce herself to the party in 7 days. But then again, why aren't you making yourself available to all the different potential viewers? JD Vance went on and did Joe Rogan in 5 hours. 5 hours after he went on and did Joe Rogan, he had about 4 million viewers of that podcast. Whereas Kamala Harris on Call Her Daddy, it was 3 weeks already and still hadn't even crossed 700,000. And I saw another metric regarding Joe Rogan with Donald Trump. Across platforms, YouTube and Twitter, they're estimating that it was over 100 million views. So did not take advantage of one of the biggest access in media right now, which is Joe Rogan.
Yeah, now I do want to try to play this from as nonpartisan as possible tonight. You guys definitely know where we lean here, but I do not want to come out and say that these views are amazing, right? In comparison, you're going to say, how is it possible that Kamala Harris can take this victory. But we have to also analyze is who our top investors are, which is, of course, Google, who has been allowing her to prop up on top of not only Google searches, but mainstream media has propelled Kamala Harris to an all-time high, essentially, if I were to look at this from a market perspective. What do I mean by that? Today, guys, Google admitted to this finally, of course, the day of the elections. Harris search discrepancy fix is coming. If you type in, where can I vote for Harris? Of course, it will tell you exactly where you can go vote versus where if you say, where can I vote for Trump? It pops up multiple articles, of course, between him and Kamala Harris. And the majority of the mainstream media has perceived him to be a negative character. And of course, Kamala Harris being a positive character. George Soros just purchased and fast streamlined this process through the, I think, FDIC or the CFTC, but ultimately buying 220 radio stations. So while she maybe didn't perform well on YouTube, she's still getting tens of millions of views elsewhere through these radio stations through, I don't know if it's tens of millions on CNN, but she's still pulling decent viewership from MSNBC, ABC, CNN, et cetera. And you have to realize, guys, a lot of Americans, it's no fault of their own. They don't want to pay attention to politics. So the only news they get is when they turn on that television. And this is why people do believe mainstream media is on its road to death. But we're still at this point in history where you saw it with Obama. He came out on stage just yesterday and pushed the, of course, hoax of fine people. Yeah. Which, and by the way, guys, Barack Obama's not a stupid individual. So there's only one of two outcomes out of this. Either he's stupid or he's purposefully utilizing a hoax to look and, of course, convince, I would say, not educated is not the right term, but ill-informed voters that aren't super attached to these politics. And that is their focus. So whether that's not 1 million voters, 10 million voters, that is what we're seeing in this shift. And that's why today I have to give it. I'm going to get our predictions here tonight. We're going to go around.
We're going to give a lot of predictions.
Let's start off the stream with some pretty strong ones. Then we'll go into some charts here with markets, and then we'll play some videos.
Real quick, before we hop into that, I did want to make one comment on what Kelly was talking about with timing. It was interesting to me that she didn't have time to go on Joe Rogan, but she did have time to fly to New York, spend 3 to 4 to 5 hours for a small sketch on SNL, and I think you would have gotten way more value out of Rogan than the SNL sketch. But anyway,
I was surprised
back
by
to the
that
predictions.
Too. SNL's big too, though.
It's
definitely not as big as
big
Joe
reach,
Rogan.
but what they did was not very impactful in my opinion.
It's a question of doing another 3-minute spot versus being able to go and talk for 3 hours.
I didn't. Hold on.
Well,
Wait,
I'd also be curious. I would imagine that's only 3 million. I don't know what their actual. I don't know what their actual viewership is, but the television views are dropping like flies. So I 100% doubt it's hundreds of millions like the podcast.
Drew, you went from being too small to too big.
Man. Well, that's all right.
Well, they're also talking
too big to rig.
They're talking also a lot now about how, typically, historically, you see a lot more female voters. And they're kind of, I think that the Democrats and Republicans, honestly, it's hard to really predict what the voter turnout's going to be today because we have an entirely different media landscape than we've ever had the opportunity to have with social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok being some of the primary facets of gaining information of our youth. I would say anybody sub 40, every year you go under 40, I think you get a somewhat exponential increase in the amount of media that you're consuming on these social media platforms. Yeah. So I was listening to a space earlier on Mario Nafal's space with a bunch of people, and somebody was saying that, oh no, all the men are voting only because of Trump and Rogan. But in reality, is that really the case, or does it have something to do more with the fact that the information that's being able to be delivered that essentially unwinds a lot of the propaganda machine that has been in place for the last 4 years? Now we're seeing people go, oh, we're seeing a young demographic voter that's saying, oh, maybe I'm not Democrat, maybe I'm not liberal. And I would argue, and I'm curious about your thoughts on this, Drew. I would argue, and I'll ask you in a second because TJ's not at the board. And I'll ask all of you out there, and thank you all for being patient with us. We're doing a live studio setup as we talk. But I would ask you out there, do we really have a Democrat versus Republican candidate voting right now? Is this what we're really voting on? Because what I'm seeing is when you have RFK, you have Tulsi Gabbard, you have Donald Trump, you have Vivek Ramaswamy, you have Ron Paul, you have a very mixed ticket of this entire incredible group of very varied personas, very varied sort of policy that's on the ballot this time. So on the one hand, you're voting for a media machine that you cannot get truth from. On the other hand, you're getting a varied wide lens of, you know, a very accultured sort of view that's so far nowhere near right wing that we've seen probably in our lifetime for what's on the ticket.
It's the velocity of information. It's like the increase of communication. Now people are able to find news right as it happens. And this is a time frame that I was always looking forward to. I knew that as I saw, you know, Facebook at a point when it first came out, information moved quickly. And it was very, very useful for me as a musician. You could advertise openly. And then over the years, they just started to constrain it, to consolidate it, to only serve mega media corporations and conglomerates. Now we have X. Now we have ways to communicate beyond that. And that's where, like, on top of the votes potentially being too big to rig, now the velocity of our communication is too big to overcome for the media machine that used to be able to squash our opinions under the rug, put it in the dark. That's not what's actually happening. You can only get your information from MSNBC, NBC, and we've seen that shift now to where small news outlets are getting 500,000 views, 1 million views, 50,000 live viewers on, various amounts of accounts. So I really think that people's fervor for information, for true information, is picking up. And with that, mainstream media is dying. And I think that it's a really good thing for humanity to have kind of a more open digital sphere to discuss these things on. It's going to help us overcome this election in a big way.
I'd have to completely agree. I think, we're watching that slowly kind of simmer out. But speaking of this, as we start tonight's series, I did want to lead with something that Psaki just came out and said directly into regards what we're talking about. Whether you like it or not, guys, we're going to try to present everything tonight, but not only facts, but the full clips, the full understanding, the full context of what these outcomes can actually create here. And the Democratic Party out there, coming out as a party of freedom. Here's what, of course...
Real quick before you start it, let's do a little
sound check?
Just little housekeeping. Can you move your window over to the left just a touch? We're not going to trigger my OCD all night. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
So that looks pretty good. Drew, you have a screen up there. Let's test this. Let's see. Boom. Yeah, move yours to the left a little bit as well, Drew.
Do the speakers work too, or no?
They should. You need to, I think,
change my speaker out.
No, I think I did. I plugged it into the same port, but we'll find out. Your headphones will not work. They're on speaker.
Oh, yeah. So you have to give me...
No. I plugged right in front of you. There's speakers.
Yeah, I don't hear the audio.
Is it playing? Oh, this is not good. Are you connected to the vMix call? No, not that. The call.
Yeah, looks like it's playing audio.
It's not.
Oh. Let me...
Yeah, see, you weren't connected.
My bad, chat.
So the question for the chat is, while they're doing that right now, that everybody ask yourself, this is a good sort of metric with all the different, because we're all coming from different bubbles.
577.
What sort of things have you been seeing in your bubble, in your narrative, and all the different things that have been supporting the information you're gathering? Do you think it's going to be a Trump landslide? Do you think it's going to be a Kamala landslide? Do you think it really matters moving forward? And all these questions, everybody's going to have varied views on, but we need to have these discussions. And we need to, even in the live chat, don't get mad if somebody says this. We need to have open discourse between each other. We need to be empowering to each other, and we need to bring facts and not just shit on somebody because you're like, this person, I don't like what they said, or I don't agree with it. Let's come together.
Well, and I'm curious to hear too if you have any surprises that we think we're going to come in. I know you were talking a little bit at the top of the show
Black
about
screen, by the way, for 577.
What's that?
Do I go try to join the other one? The 577
didn't work.
Yeah, I have to do the 629.
Okay, well
that works if I pull up the 629, but I don't think I have audio.
Well, is the video playing?
Here you go.
I see you on the call.
It's good. We'll keep trying.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
I hear it.
I hear it on your end.
No, it's not playing.
Let me try one more time on the other one. But yeah, the 577 is not that loads into a black screen.
So weird.
I love tech, guys. Every time we change one thing, the full system crashes.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, the primary thing that changed on this set was they lowered the table. Yeah. And we added a mic over here, and it's just like, no, guys, you know what this is very reminiscent of? our voting system in America.
Yeah. Well, I've been hearing they're having issues with the voting machines in both Michigan and Pennsylvania right now, which is pretty interesting. Drew, play a video over there. Let me see if that comes in.
All right, let's go here. Let's go to what is there? Saki?
Just
with
anything.
the P?
Pasaki, yeah.
Pasaki. Let's go. We're raw dogging into DZ's account here.
Yeah, you got Pasaki. If Kamala wins, social media platforms must be accountable for the lies they spread, saying that we need to put restrictions on social media applications.
All right. Well, I'm getting Drew's audio.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I pull up Jen
Jen
Psaki.
Psaki. Where's this link here?
All right. So Josh, I don't know why that one's not coming through.
You know, that one's never really worked for me.
No, I had it. It was working yesterday. Tested everything.
Playing audio. Let's switch. Can you switch this back to the headset? I'll just wear the headset.
Yeah, but you might have to change settings on it.
I will change that. Drew, take over the charts here. Pull up. Let's do a little bit of a market update.
Yeah, all right.
Just on how everything's performing. Of course, you know, DJT, cryptos, mainstream products.
Dude, I am white knuckling Trump token right now. I need to go look at this thing. I got a bag of Trump token that I'm riding into chaos right now. I got a bag of MAGA Trump. Can't decide when I'm going to get rid of it. Sitting here at $3.42. You know, this is something that I definitely don't feel like I'm going to be able to hold all the way into 2025 for the bull market. I am hopeful that we see some sort of resurgence on this thing. It's trying to hold on by dear life. My God, it's it's something that we've called in the basement for a long time. Sitting here trying to find some support around $3. I'm not expecting like extreme $30 price action on this thing, but it could see a quick double up. If they announce that Trump is indeed the winner, this would be a nasty mover. I want to see also Solana is starting to act as strong almost as Bitcoin in a kind of a chaotic way. We have the market cap to the price shown here. Let's see here. And really Solana is looking like it's Solana, Bitcoin, and then I think Ethereum. I don't think Ethereum's going down to zero. It's definitely lagging. It might find a flash wick down to $2,000 though. So if it does have that type of situation, that would be a good entry point. Like, basically the bottom end of this range that it's built in the past. It tried to nuke there out of August. What was this? August 8th. This is around the yen carry trade situation. This is a really good market test for extreme pain, extreme fear at this Japanese yen carry trade situation. So, if they have a contested moment in the election, I wouldn't be surprised to see a momentary pullback to that level for Ethereum. Kind of why I put a little bit of USDT on the sidelines to be able to buy up. And I have this bag of Ondo. I'm sitting here kind of wondering about.
Ondo.
Yeah, it's like I built the bag around 40 cents. And I don't feel like that thing kicked me out, so you won't be able to see. But basically, Ondo's sitting here at 61 cents. And I am wondering if this thing is going to be able to really have a good bounce moment from this time frame it's at. It's at the original pump moment here. It's hit this level once before and found support. So I am hoping that it is able to bounce off there, but it's a tough call to make if I should ride this Ondo into 2025. I mean, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, so good news, guys. We got audio we got audio ready to go here. But, my opinion on holding tokenization plays, it all depends on the elections tonight. So, let me know in the chat what altcoins you hold, because it's going to fall into two categories, I believe. No matter what, I think whoever wins this election, Bitcoin's bullish. Now, I think under a Trump victory, obviously it's way more bullish, but under a Kamala Harris victory, I think that Bitcoin's still going to grow as an asset class and mature, especially when other countries like Russia, India, China are utilizing it with their BRIC systems. So no matter what, Bitcoin has a positive direction. But the conversation turns once you start talking about what are the regulations that are going to be put into place under a Harris administration and under a Trump administration against DeFi and crypto. So under a Harris, I expect a lot more central control. I think they're going to look at crypto much more as a national security concern and threat, meaning it's going to be a lot harder for entrepreneurs to be incentivized to stay in the States because they're going to heavily regulate it, versus Trump, where he's going to deregulate it. He's going to incentivize people to want to build in the States. So that means DeFi. That means meme coins. That means revenue sharing platforms. Those type of products, I think, will be more beneficial under a Trump admin. However, okay, I still think tokenization will do very, very well. Under a Harris administration, I think you're looking at way more fundamental plays. I think you're going to still have meme coins performing because they're just that specific sector, but you're going to have a lot tighter regulation coming into the field, which means that you're going to want to focus primarily on the products that are intertwined with, of course, the government and institutions like BlackRock. So I have bets on either path. I think tokenization is the future. It's one of those plays that I'm going to dollar cost average into if we get a huge dip here. You guys know this. The other play here is AI. Okay. I think AI is going to be a massive sector. And it depends on, of course, the amount of regulatory clarity we get moving into this industry moving forward. There's a lot of uncertainty between a lot of AI experts on whether or not AI is going to be good or bad. So all I'm focused on is what's going to be the most deregulated outcome versus the most regulated outcome. Because all of you in chat here typing with AXL, fringe finance, overnight finance, don't even know what that one is, but the new projects here. A lot of you guys hold altcoins. And if you're holding Drift, Phantom, Rune, Near, Render, Pendle, Beam, any of these altcoins, you have to ask yourself, what would it look like to hold that altcoin under a highly tight regulatory environment, right? So that is what I'm waiting for over tonight. That's why tonight, chat, we are hedged. Bitcoin's down to $69,200. We shorted it around 70K here. We're up just a few percent. A small short position worth about $300,000. And by small, I mean in low leverage. So we're not doing 10x, 15x, anything crazy. Low 4x play here. And it's hedging our position here. So if we do get a dump from $69,200 to $68,300 because of uncertainty in the markets, the stock market, equities, Bitcoin, they hate uncertainty. I am expecting a bit of a pullback tonight. I think a lot of people are in for a reality check when it comes to these elections moving forward. Yes, I believe Donald Trump's going to win the outcome of this. However, it's not guaranteed. And if Trump doesn't win when he's elected, just check this out, right? DJT. They are going to come after Donald Trump so hard if he loses here. If you pull up DJT, markets were pricing in today. I'm on the 5-minute chart. Let me go to the daily chart here. Check this out, right? Wow. I mean, it's insane. Markets were pricing in a Donald Trump victory. It went up from its bottom here over the month, like 100, what is this? 300, 400, 320%. It's since retraced. Yesterday and the day before, you started getting more hype, people pricing in a Trump victory again, 33%. But as we get closer and closer to the election, markets become more and more uncertain. And because of the uncertainty, that is why we have hedged our positions here tonight. So we will see this play out in about an hour and 44 minutes. We're going to have the first results coming in, of course, from your U.S. election. I think you got Florida. You have Georgia, I think, is going to be at 7 o'clock. And actually, if you're curious, you can type it in on Google and see the actual expected results. Now, we may not get them directly at 7 p.m. here tonight, but if we click show more, we're expecting Florida's tonight. Georgia's, I think, are going to be delayed. 7:30, you're going to get North Carolina. Another state, I think, is going to be delayed, but we'll see. And if we get a sea of red, that would be awesome, but I am not necessarily banking on that. So
real quick, let's play something here with audio.
Yeah, I was going to play, I want to listen in. I want to hear a little bit what they're saying from, of course, the ground here.
Still not getting that.
You got audio?
No. You hear it though, right?
So I hear it through my PC. You mean to join the other vMix call?
No, stay where you are. It's
so
playing.
As this comes in, guys, Polymarket is not a forecast. I'm not going off Polymarket whatsoever. Any election forecast yet? Yes, I got some right here. So let's pull, as he's looking for the audio, let me know when you're just ready for it. But some election forecasts, they're all around, man. It's super hard to predict these elections. You're going to have polls from both sides saying Trump's in favored in every single state, just like this one from Bo Ludin. The most accurate pollster of 2020, Atlas Intel, according to them, has Trump winning every swing state in their latest poll. Trump 6+ points, 5 points in Nevada, 3.6 points in North Carolina, 1.8 in Georgia, 1.7 in Pennsylvania. And I will play the clip here when you're ready for the audio. I'm not logged in, so I can't.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason.
Let me re-log in. Just put it on my big face. and let's do.
Well, and I got to while you guys are doing this, I mean, first of all, are we ordering pizza or not?
We need to order pizza for sure.
And then we need to the chat. I mean, definitely pineapple and no, wait, peppers and bacon. We'll do peppers and bacon instead of pineapple and bacon.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I heard your reaction.
Well, no, I just thought you were going down the controversial. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
What if? It's not that bad.
I'm not against it. Yeah, we're definitely ordering some pizza tonight. We can eat. Oh, wait a minute. I think I'm getting. Yeah, I got it.
All right.
But let's do it.
Just like that, we got it, brother.
All these stipulations. Oh, he says this. He can't talk about this. Whatever.
So let's see what we got here.
So Joe Rogan said, I'm sorry.
Don't
I'm
full
taking
screen
JD
that.
Vance right now. Trump.
This isn't even the audio.
State.
Oh,
There you go. Ready? You don't want me to full screen? Yeah. So
try it.
Here we go from Bo Luden.
Right now, Trump is leading in every single swing state. So, I mean, putting voter fraud aside, I think Trump takes this by a landslide. I mean, people are just not excited for Kamala Harris. I mean, it was just announced today that she was in talks with Joe Rogan to try to get on his show, and her team was throwing out all these stipulations. Oh, he says this. He can't talk about this. Whatever. And she was taking long. So Joe Rogan said, I'm sorry, done with you. I'm taking JD Vance right now. Trump is leading.
Yeah, I'm taking JD Vance. Yeah. A lot of people are going to be talking about Joe Rogan. I think people are, the left is underplaying how strong of an endorsement that is here. And of course, are we live on TikTok as well?
Yes.
Yeah, Joe Rogan's pretty center of the road. Like, he's got a lot of people that they're not hyperbolic politically, that hearing that Trump endorsement. And I've been really surprised. I have some friends, I keep friendships with Democrats, believe it or not.
That is healthy.
Isn't that healthy?
They're just not invited to Thanksgiving,
right? I try to keep it healthy. I try to keep the conversation going. And some of them, I'm not going to say who, they would never want me to say this, but I have a handful of never Trumper friends that I'm still close with that have voted for Trump. And it's really shown me the sentiment is shifting in a huge way. These are people that you would have said had TDS last cycle, and they've gone through 4 years of extreme inflationary pressures, of, basically preferential treatment being given to criminals in the country. And they feel very left out, very left behind by the current administration. So at a grassroots level, I'm absolutely in the strong feeling that this is going to be a landslide victory. But it's a matter, to me, if they're going to admit that it's a victory on mainstream media tonight.
And here's why he endorsed, of course, Elon Musk.
That have been lifelong Democrats, guys like Bill Ackman, guys like Chamath,
exactly.
Tulsi Gabbard switched over to the Republicans. Like, there's a lot of people who their whole life they've been left wing, and they realize, like, I can't do this anymore.
You and I used to be Democrats.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's nuts.
It's nuts, man. If the Dems win this election, they will legalize enough illegals to turn the swing states, and everywhere will be like California. There will be no escape.
That is so insane.
That's so
This
scary.
is the final. This is it.
Yeah, and so some people out there want to say Joe Rogan's right. He's never voted Republican ever. He's been a huge environmentalist, anti-war, and it's funny because what it means to be a Republican today is not the same as it was 4 years ago. And a lot of people are politically homeless at this point because the left Democrats aren't democratic anymore. They're progressive liberals, and that's far left. So we're at this weird stage here. And the reason why I think Joe Rogan ended up leaning center right here in this election and going for the Republican endorsement was simply because of this cause. I mean, he's had multiple people on here with now over 12 hours of discussion, specifically a lot of that allocated to the illegal immigration talks here. And John Fetterman fumbled the bag so hard when it came to this from the Democratic perspective. He didn't have an answer for Joe Rogan, which was just using a logical response and trying to have a simple conversation, and then being turned down by, of course, Kamala Harris. I don't know if you invited Tim Waltz. That would have been a funny one to watch there as well. But
I don't think they had enough horse semen to get entice Waltz.
Well.
I'm sorry.
Real quick though, I do want to have that conversation about left, right, center, all that kind of stuff, because it used to. It was a good. I think you made a really good point there. The party that we're seeing put together right now, I lean a lot more towards the libertarian stance, and I feel like this is what they've put together with Ron Paul, with RFK, with Vivek, Tulsi, all these other people you just mentioned, is the closest thing to a balanced approach to this that we've seen in a really long time. You've got perspectives from different sides. They don't all agree on all subjects, and I think that's extremely healthy.
Yeah.
To have actually a reasonable discourse going on different takes. You're not just following your party line 100%. So because somebody in the chat said, "Oh, Joe Rogan's right leaning," and it's like, well, that being a fan of the United States didn't used to be a strong stance. Like saying like I want our country to succeed, that didn't used to be controversial. So watching what's coming together now, again, the fact that the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire came out and endorsed the Trump campaign, I'm actually more excited if they win. I'm actually more excited for the next election. I think Trump, if he does win, will come in and really just clear a lot of the BS out of the way. And whoever steps in next, whether it's JD, whether it's Vivek, whether it's anybody, Tulsi Gabbard, I think Tulsi Gabbard next election has a decent chance to be a legitimate first U.S. female president.
Yeah, like this is like the A team. And when I was looking at Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, Trump, JD Vance, if they do pull this election off, we could be looking at an effective third party make its way into American politics in 2028.
Wait, so you're saying libertarians have a shot?
Yes, and that would finally give that centrist kind of libertarian movement some teeth, and then the larger machine has to behave in a more reasonable manner. If there's three
also,
balances.
Drew, you're sitting on the credit card, so we need.
But you're
that
still too. Like,
yeah,
I don't think a libertarian could ever win Congress. Is the problem?
No, I don't think so either. But if we take this, party, we actually do have a chance for that. To, somebody like the fact that Ron Paul could be getting involved with the Department of Government Efficiency is the most exciting thing I've heard in politics in a long time, and I freaking hate politics. So.
I know.
This, like the fact that Ron Paul's name's out there again, and he's actually going to get to do, like, he was the first end the Fed voice I ever heard, and now they're getting Trump to come around to this stuff. If you guys, I mean, obviously, look, we're Bitcoin people. We lean towards less government, less censorship, less rules and regulation. I lean towards freedom, whether that's freedom of money, freedom of state, freedom of religion. I believe in free choice. I believe people should have the right to decide for themselves where they want to put their money, what they want to do with it. And I see for the first time an actual legitimate chance to have a conversation about, is the Federal Reserve, is central banking bad for the United States? The answer is very clear if you look at the data, but we haven't been allowed to have that conversation because we all know the money, he who has the money makes the rules. And so far, that has not been the United States. It's been the people banking us. So.
Yeah.
I'm looking at, we got breaking news here. Elon Musk has officially changed the like button to support Donald Trump.
Oh, is it the ballot? Oh, no way.
We have a caller. We have Samuel Arms waiting in the wings, too.
Pass that on the chat here. Oh, perfect. Let's actually start this off here. Guys, Bitcoin, let me just say this real quick. Bitcoin is at 69,100, so shout out to anybody in that hedge position here. But our first special guest here calling in, Samuel Arms, of course, somebody that is huge, a huge reason for all the success in anti-CBDC bills and lobbying pro-crypto initiatives on the entire federal scale from the East Coast. Will be joining us in here right now. But and Samuel Arms.
Flip that phone sideways.
Sam. I got to figure out where the call in there is for you. There you go. Oh, calling in from the phone. Where are we at,
Sam? Calling it, yeah, because I'm about to leave for Patrick Bet-David's event, so I couldn't set up. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I couldn't do from my computer because I'm leaving for Patrick Bet-David's event. I'm down in Fort Lauderdale. And I got to leave in like 10, 15 minutes. So phone was all I could do. So I'm sorry about that, guys.
Well, what do you see out there? What is the most interesting thing you've been seeing so far? You've been watching polls or anything kind of interesting from your perspective?
Yeah, so just speaking in generalities, normally Democrats always lead the early vote and Republicans make up for the vote on election day. That's, I think, pretty well known by now. The difference for this election is this is the first time Republicans in a lot of these swing states have actually outdone Democrats, which is a huge deal. So part of the big question is, were those new voters or are they cannibalizing the vote that they're going to have on election day? What we're seeing is that a lot of them are actually new voters coming into the market, which is crazy and would indicate a Trump sweep in a lot of ways. I think the states to me that are going to be most interesting is Pennsylvania, because once again, kind of in our weird federated system, like in Pennsylvania, you just need maybe 200,000 people to swing the state, which is not a lot. And one of the key coalitions and demographics there, funny enough, is the Amish. One of the reasons that's
Yeah.
such a big deal is one, they can't be polled. Two, Democrats have specifically targeted Amish businesses. And so they have a huge incentive to turn out and vote. I don't know if you saw that. Kamala Harris's administration literally raided Amish farms and shut down entire
Wow.
Amish farms from
Mm.
selling raw milk and beef and all kinds of stuff. So they have personal skin in the game. In Michigan, what's interesting is you're seeing so far lower turnout in Detroit, which is a huge problem for Kamala Harris, and you now have Muslims voting for Trump. So I was watching Charlie Kirk the other day talking about some of his on-campus interviews, and one thing to remember is voting compounds. So what I mean by, and I know this is simple, but sometimes you don't think about it this way, when someone changes their vote from Kamala to Trump, it subtracts from Kamala and adds to Trump, right? Like, I know that sounds stupid, but that literally means, like, for every Muslim that is going to vote for Donald Trump, it really doubles the amount of weight on that voting demographic. So Charlie Kirk was interviewing a bunch of Muslim kids on a college campus, and it was really funny because he was like, well, so tell me, I mean, you guys are here, you're getting Trump hats, like, what's the Muslim community doing? And the kids said, and obviously anecdotal, right, but the kids said, well, the Muslim community is voting 50-50. And they're like, which, by the way, in and of itself would be a big deal because Donald Trump in 2020 only won 30% of the Muslim vote. I bet a lot of people didn't even know that he won as much as 30% of the Muslim vote. But they said, okay, so it's 50-50 for Kamala and for Trump. And the kids said no. They said 50% are voting for Trump, the other 50 are voting for Jill Stein, right?
Wow.
Interesting.
Which it means they're not getting any votes. Now, of course, there will be Muslims voting for Kamala Harris, but that gives you like a little insight on the turnout. So that's why, in like my projection, I really do think he has a good shot of winning Michigan. Kamala Harris also has been polling continuously low among union voters. So Joe pulled in a lot of the union vote, which is like white, middle class, working class, blue collar. The unions do not do not like Kamala Harris. As soon as Joe Biden dropped out, her chances of winning these blue wall states dropped severely. So it's really interesting. Obviously, I've seen some reports, and it's so hard to verify. But I've seen some reports about like voting machines going out and literally losing
Mm-hmm.
power, and people saying, "Hey, you have to come back at like 11
10 p.m.
p.m." and stuff
Yep.
like that. Yeah, exactly. So, but like I'm really, really bullish because this time we have Twitter. Jack Dorsey isn't going to be censoring people. Everyone's going to have their cell phone out, right? So the odds are just going to be crazy. And of course, if we don't know the winner tonight, it's going to be lawfare, right? If Trump wins tonight, 162 Democratic lawsuits instantly go into effect, questioning the election integrity. I don't know if you guys seen the census argument, but if Kamala wins, depending on what states and voter margin she wins by, it is documented and recorded that the U.S. Census Office actually screwed up the census. So Florida, for example, should have two more electoral votes than they should.
Mm.
So Trump could sue and say, well, actually, the Electoral College is not proportioned appropriately, and that would go directly to the Supreme Court. So I
Oh
think
wow.
Joshua made a really good TikTok on his election prediction, and it is very possible that I think the Supreme Court could be the one that actually decides who the president is. But my hope is the blowout's so big that we actually know by tonight.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you have any surprise predictions for tonight? Anything you're expecting, any prediction of a like shocking surprise?
I don't know about shocking, but if it's a blowout for Trump, I think we could keep the House and add House seats and take the Senate. The reason that's a big deal is that would be a huge mandate because talk 6 months ago when it was Biden versus Trump, the general knowledge in DC, which it's DC, right? So take that what it's worth, was that Republicans would take the Senate, take the presidency, but Democrats would take the House, right? That was kind of the general political math. But if you look at Trump, where he campaigned, like why was Trump at Coachella? Why was he campaigning in New York City? It's not just for the popular vote. He was campaigning where there are House seats that are swing seats, right, in Congress. It's a very big deal. And so if they can keep the House, then I think it's game over. So there's so many variables. We're just going to have to wait and see. And I hate that. It drives me nuts. that you're kind of stepping on eggshells, right? Because you really don't know if things are going to be delayed. But we have so much momentum. There's so much good on our side. I mean, even small things like the Joe Rogan endorsement, like the Overton window has shifted so much, which is just the idea of what is acceptable political thought, that even if the election doesn't go how I want it to go, like what I believe is still being pushed forward in a huge way. Like Tulsi Gabbard's not going to go away. RFK is not going to go away. JD Vance, like Joe Rogan endorsing Trump, that puts him in a camp where he can't take that back. So now he's forced to be on our side. Elon Musk, right? Elon, for him, he's target number. If Trump wins, Elon Musk is probably one of the largest targets. Like, I'm genuinely worried about that guy because him buying Twitter and everything that he's done for the Trump campaign. Like, if Trump wins, a lot of it's going to be because of Elon Musk. And so, he realizes that he is all in. And he said that. I think he said that at one of Joe Rogan's, not the most recent podcast, but the one before, that he is all in on Trump. And that is true. They are going to screw him in every way, shape, and form if Donald Trump loses. They don't care about going to space. They don't care about Starlink. They're happy to set America behind just to make an example of somebody.
Yeah,
So
which is insane.
crazy.
Let me ask you this: if they were to win, what do you have any predictions for? I know this is kind of crazy we're doing tonight, but do you have any predictions for the next term? Like, say the Trump administration wins, who do you think could be next up? Is it JD Vance? Is it potentially Vivek? Is it Tulsi? I was just talking about potentially Tulsi Gabbard being potentially the first female president. Is that in play 4 years from now?
man, I know. First, we got to win
I,
first,
I
but
know, I know, I know.
yeah, but so what's great is the talent pool now is so good that it could be any one of the all-star players. It could be
Right.
Vivek, Tulsi, it could be DeSantis, it could be RFK could run.
Yeah,
Like
I
it's
like that.
whoever kind of succeeds the mandate. And obviously, if we do as well as I'm hoping we do, I think Trump might even just stay out of it and say, "Hey, you guys, like this, we did good. Now you kind of have to forge your own path and figure out who the next one is, and maybe he'll push his weight behind somebody." Um, but I mean, and that's another thing that I'm really excited about is now I was talking on Luke Radowski's podcast the other day, and I was telling him like I'm almost thankful in a twisted way that Trump lost in 2020 because we were able to figure out who is good, who is bad. We cleared house. Like
Mhm.
imagine if Trump won in 2020, we'd still have a Mike Pence. We'd still have these establishment people. We have no idea who's truly on your side. We wouldn't have had the RFKs and Tulsis of the world join the Republican Party. We wouldn't have had the Dick and Liz Cheneys of the world leave the Republican Party, right? So it's taken a total of about 12 years to fully see the party realignment and to finally have a party because before both Republicans and Democrats were so pro-war, but now we finally have a party that is anti-war, which I think is a huge deal. So, and that's tying it all back together. That's again one of the reasons why Muslims I think are going to be so heavily Republican at this election. And when I say heavily, I just mean like I wouldn't be surprised if Trump wins 45% of the Muslim vote, right? Which is unprecedented.
Well, let's talk a little bit about him on I replaced Drew for a minute here. In terms of what the outcome of this election looks like, because I feel like the problem isn't even necessarily who's going to win this election. It's actually the depression in America. I feel like everybody's drinking tonight rather than eating popcorn. That's not a good point
Yeah.
to be in today. So, let's talk about both outcomes because it's not off the table. We have to whether it's I think it's a smaller margin, but that Kamala
Yeah.
Harris can actually take the reins on this thing. I heard you talk a little bit about my video prediction there, where this might end up going to the Supreme Court. Which, to be honest, though, my prediction is this: if Kamala Harris doesn't win tonight, she can't win. And the reason for that is if they're going to take days to count these votes, it just feeds into Trump's narrative of issues within these elections, and I think that would cause more discrepancy among civilians than anything else should. So let's talk about what is net. What happens if Kamala Harris wins tonight?
If Kamala Harris wins, it really just depends on like if Republicans win anything else, right? Like if Kamala Harris wins, do Republicans get the Senate? do they get the House? Um, if Republicans even get the Senate, like you're going to see a lot of locked government. But Kamala Harris is still going to be in charge of the administrative state. So that's 4 more years of Gary Gensler type behavior. The executive has become so powerful, and we've seen that. We have a Republican House, and look at all the harm that you can still do from the Democratic side just having the presidency. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good for industry. It's not going to be good for leadership. It's not going to be good for war. But I think Republicans are going to do exactly what Democrats are going to do. Is if Kamala Harris wins, it's all about a war of attrition. But I think very heavily so. I think you're going to see lawsuits out the wazoo. And I think you're really going to see Congress, especially the House or the Senate, whoever Republicans keep or take, step
So
up to the plate and really.
let's hone in on that a little bit, because I think this is obviously definitely a much more complex issue than people realize. But there's two big things, okay, that I hear that I think every voter could agree that is what they're taking the polls today. From the left, abortion. Let's start with this first topic. Can Kamala Harris even change the current abortion regulation that exists in today's society?
So the popular thing to say is no, right? Because it was Roe v. Wade, and the Supreme Court overturned that. So now it's to the states. However, what I'll tell you is we consistently see the executive violate the Constitution and norms all the time. So even though the correct answer is no, she can't, I would not be surprised if she goes through the Department of Health and starts trying to issue regulations to the point where hospitals don't get federal funding if they don't allow for certain procedures, right? And start like there's all kinds of things that you can do to weaponize the federal government to get what you want. Is what they've been doing with the SEC truly constitutional? I don't think so. Is that stopping them from doing it? No. And that's really,
Well, explain for
kind
the
of what.
viewers here, what are they doing with what is the Democratic Party doing with the SEC?
Well,
Also, again, is it possible for you to set your phone down so it's not shaking? I don't know if it is.
yeah, I know. I could set it down like that. But is that a weird ankle or is that
No,
okay?
it's
No,
good.
that's great. That's better.
Is
Thank
that
you.
better? I
Thank
know because I'm always moving my hand. So, for example, with the SEC has very obviously gone beyond their federal authority, right? The SEC's mission is to protect the consumer. In no way or shape or form has the SEC protected the consumer. They've simply gone after political enemies, one of them being cryptocurrency companies. The SEC has worked with the banking industry to make sure that they're debanked with the federal government. Totally unconstitutional to do that. Like the federal government is not allowed to literally just tell banks, hey, by the way, if you're banking any of these companies, we're going to be raiding your bank. We're going to be investigating your bank, make regulations harder. So they've weaponized through enforcement to target a specific industry, which is like antitrust and like monopoly like behavior, which the government is not allowed to do.
And specifically, just for the audience to understand, regulatory by enforcement, specifically in the crypto sector. I mean, you've seen Gary Gensler lose lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit where they're taking taxpayer dollars and doing the exact opposite of what the consumers in the industry want, because they're not protecting us, they're protecting their donors. For example, FTX, which actually there was just a ruling where now the government is looking to get reimbursed or take back the $13 billion or 13, I don't even remember how much money it was that went to the Democratic donor parties. It was a lot more obviously to the Democratic Party than the Republican Party. And so even with that dark money involved, this is, I think, is a perfect explanation. Everybody watching here, let us know in chat, of course, if you want Gary Gensler fired or not, right? Yes or no? Fire Gary Gensler or not? Because they're all holding altcoins. So if Kamala Harris were to win and we were to see another 4 years of this, what does the regulatory environment look like for U.S. consumers?
A big reminder is that the lawsuit is the punishment. They don't care if you win the lawsuit. When people say, well, the SEC's been losing lawsuits, that's fine, because you're fighting a lawyer who has unlimited amount of money. The lawsuit is the punishment. They don't care if they lose, right? The reason that's so important is because it tells you that no matter what the law says, even if they know they're going to lose the fight, they want to drain you of funds and they want to scare you, right? And by the way, it's not just the SEC. A recent report just came out with the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, targeting companies just like the SEC has for political gain. One of Trump's appointees to the FTC literally resigned because she couldn't stomach the persecution that they were doing over there that was so politically biased. And just a fun fact, these commissioners are appointed by the president and approved. They serve out terms, but the president can replace the chair whenever he wants. So anytime anyone's telling me that Kamala could be pro crypto, they're full of it, because Kamala could right now use her influence and power to say, Gensler, you're no longer the chair. I'm putting someone else as the chair. Gensler's still going to be on the SEC until his term expires, but the chair is the one who leads the direction of the SEC. There's always a chair in these federal agencies. So Trump, day one, I think is going to get rid of Gary Gensler. He'll still be on the SEC, but he will have no more power as the chair. So if that makes sense, does that answer your question?
Yeah, 100%. You know, we'd be looking. We got to luckily meet with Cynthia Lummis and ask her questions head on with her developing a lot of these Bitcoin reserve strategies and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to see how that's what voters are taking to the booth here. Because what you're talking about, yeah, she could sidestep, go through the Department of Health. She could go into, somehow. I would say it's like a 5-10% chance she's able to actually overturn these abortion issues out there, which really makes you, wonder what is the actual reason people are voting for this next president of the United States. And I think that's why it's bringing so much stress and anxiety. I mean, type 1 in chat. How many of you are stressed or anxious today? You're grabbing a beer. You're like, holy smokes, who's going to win tonight? Give me hope. Give me copium. And the guest call-in guys here is Samuel Arms, of course. Somebody who works with Gary Cardone. He's built the entire FBBA, which is the Florida Business Blockchain Association. Huge advocate and reason why a lot of our lobbying for crypto has been so positive. Huge mover in the political markets out there, and is why you know so much here when it comes into what does it mean when said individual does certain things in lawfare. So, the next part of this is really if Gary Gensler's gone. So we know what happens if Kamala Harris wins. All right, we got probably another 4 years of Gary Gensler. You're looking at, I always talk about this, but Janet Yellen wants to retire. So you're looking at the deputy of the Treasury Secretary, which is Wally Adeyemo, comes directly from Elizabeth Warren's pocket. Now the anti-crypto army expert. You're looking at a lot of anti-crypto experts, quotation marks there, being put into positions of executive power. So under a Trump administration, this still blows my mind, but there's people out there that don't believe it matters who's president. Why would it matter and be beneficial to crypto holders if Trump were to instate these new executive?
Crypto does very well under Trump because once he gets rid of Gary Gensler as chair, no more lawsuits, no more persecution of the industry. Operation Choke Point 2.0, where they're debanking crypto companies, that stops because he has the authority to stop it, right? Like, people don't understand that the United States is a leader in Web3, blockchain, Bitcoin technology, and industry, but it's being held back by not being able to get basic banks, by not being able to operate without being sued. Like, that stifles innovation. It doesn't allow companies to move, to grow. It also means investment doesn't want to come here. So Trump, first day, is going to get rid of Gensler, which means we finally have executive agencies that aren't persecuting the industry. Banks will be able to start being more friendly toward our industry because it'll be accepted by these federal agencies that run the banks. And then he's talked about literally a Bitcoin strategic reserve. So how could you, the idea that Trump is not going to help crypto or Bitcoin is just insane, right? Like, the market in the United States will become a leader. And I can go more into detail on that if you want. I don't want to steal all this talking time, but it's just so obvious that Trump can do so much for the industry. One, by just stopping the persecution. Then two, we're going to see for the first time in America, the federal government embracing Bitcoin and embracing this technology. It's going to be huge. We have Vivek, who loves crypto, JD Vance, who's invested in it, RFK Jr., who literally understands it probably better than any candidate and anyone else in Trump's cabinet. You have Elon Musk. Like, how are you going to argue that this isn't going to be a administration that is going to push this industry, which I think is so bullish and so good for America?
So before, I know you got to get out of here, you're going to be going to Patrick Bet-David's house party or election party here, which is awesome. Feel free to call in and give us the insight. But
yeah, I will call you from there.
That'd be awesome. What's your prediction for tonight? That's what everybody wants to know. We're getting predictions for everybody that comes into here. We're less than now an hour and a half away from the initial results starting to come in. What is your prediction for, of course, the elections of 20?
My prediction based on the numbers I've seen, if we know tonight, if we know by the end of the night tonight, my guess would be Trump wins North Carolina, he wins Pennsylvania, he wins Wisconsin, he wins Michigan, he wins Nevada, and then I think he'll win New Hampshire. And all the data and all the markings show that. For example, and this is silly, but there's a town in New Hampshire with literally, it was 5 people, now it's 6. And it's a big deal because they vote at midnight. And it's kind of like one of those fun little bellwethers that kind of don't mean much, but kind of tell you like the sentiment. Every person in that town is like a never Trumper. But in 2016, 1 out of the 5 at the time voted for Trump. And then, of course, Trump won New Hampshire. In 2020, all of them voted for Biden. And of course, Biden won New Hampshire. This time, now they've added 6. So it's not 5 people, it's 6. 3 of them voted for Trump. Right. So what does that tell you? In Michigan, kind of like I said before, I think he's going to win Michigan because I think Muslims, which are a huge population there, Ilhan Omar has not endorsed Kamala Harris. Ilhan Omar, part of the squad, part of AOC's party, faction, whatever you want to call it, has not endorsed Kamala Harris. The Muslim community does not like Kamala Harris. So I think that swings Michigan red. I think Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, just because of the union vote and the white working class vote turning out and what they've seen there, are going to vote for Trump
And
as
how
well.
many battleground states does he need to win this? Is it just Pennsylvania and North Carolina and he's looking to secure the victory, or does he need to secure 6 battleground states to really contest?
No, if he wins everything, if he wins everything a Republican normally wins, which is like Arizona and Utah, and if he wins North Carolina and Georgia, right? So, and some of those, some people consider battlegrounds. If he wins those, all he needs to win is one of the blue wall states. So he can win Pennsylvania and win. He can win just Michigan and win. He can win just Wisconsin and win. So his electoral map looks very good. If Kamala Harris flips North Carolina or flips Georgia, which we'll know, he's probably going to lose. Right? So the East Coast we're going to know very early on. If he wins Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, it's game over. Trump wins. They don't really have a path to victory.
Well, Samuel Arms, it's been a pleasure having you on here today. Sorry you had to deal with all the audio issues and us running around. We finally got it fixed and put it through here. So everybody, we got a bunch of people that'll be joining us tonight for this election watch party. Just give me a call, text, dude. You're welcome to hop in here. I'm very excited to see if you can towards 8 or 9 o'clock. We're going to have obviously a lot of the electoral votes starting to float in here. And come back in and join us for another recalculation of the outcome of this election. But it's been an absolute pleasure. If you got anything you want to leave off here, guys, follow Samuel Arms here on Twitter. We'll put it in the comments here below for you guys. Thank you for coming on, brother.
I'll talk to you soon.
What a, yeah, guys. I mean, tonight, definitely looking very positive from Samuel Arms' perspective here with a lot of those votes that weren't there in 2016 or 2020. And I do want to go over to the charts here on crypto here. You were looking at Bitcoin now bouncing back a little bit. Lots of volatility. I want to remind you guys that we are in this hedge position here. We're up about $2,200, $2,200. It touched at about 4K here. And the entire purpose of this, for everybody that's in the free Telegram chat, we have over 1,000 members in there. So shout out to all of you that are in that group. Of course, all are hedged just for any possibility of an outcome of a Harris win tonight. This is going to allow us to navigate uncertain markets, keeping our portfolio strong before we can finally take that menu that's been given out from all these institutions on whether or not we should invest in a DeFi or tokenization or crypto overall, just in general, after these election results. So huge things coming in. I do have some breaking news. Wu-Tang Financial here, well, that was actually not the wrong, that was the wrong one here. Voting machines are down in deep red, Cambria County, Pennsylvania. I've been getting there's a lot of these on the feed right now with voters polls actually going down, the system's breaking here. So whether or not these turn out to be true or not, there's a lot of video evidence portraying that there is deep issues in multiple different states here.
Well, let's talk about that real quick. Voting machines, right?
Yeah.
Should it be paper? Should it be electronic? Do we need technology in our voting system or not? What do you guys think? Go for it.
Dude, I mean, how are we so technologically advanced that we've gone to the moon and we can't tally up votes? Really? Like, are we that far off? It's like, I think that being told that we don't have the ability to get the information live fire, meanwhile, they spend trillions of dollars on data centers, trillions of dollars on data sets. It's a psyop, honestly, to me. And I feel like it just gives a little bit of wiggle room for the backdoor movements. I really am hard to sell that there is not a simpler way and a more concise way to get the data out the night of. I mean, it just feels like.
I mean, there's definitely ways, and I think we'll see that fixed up depending on the outcomes of these elections here. But we do have polls coming in right now that are showing here from Atlas Intel here. 47% favoring, of course, Kamala Harris, 50% favoring Trump in North Carolina. So a 3.4 lead here from, of course, Atlas Intel. Georgia with now a Trump lead here of 2.5. I am in Georgia. I did vote for Donald Trump today. Arizona here, way bigger lead than I expected. Arizona was one of those states that in my video is actually the only state I think has a chance at actually grabbing the blue majority there just because of you type in Arizona, the propaganda there is extreme. Nevada here, 5.5 lead. I'm expecting that to be an outcome of Trump here. Wisconsin, Wisconsin +1, and then Michigan +1.5. More polls are coming out here and showing that it's just more and more polls. And then you had this breaking news 31 minutes ago, CNN exit poll. These numbers are absolutely disastrous for Democrats. Let's take a listen to this. Interesting enough from CNN.
43% dissatisfied, 29% angry, 72% of the electorate nationally say they're dissatisfied or angry. What about America's best days, we ask? Are they in the future or are they in the past? 61% of voters in this election across the country say America's best days are ahead of the country. 6 in 10.
So why this is going viral here is, of course, talking about this means, Kamala Harris has been vice president in the last 3.5 years, and the majority of the population is either angry or dissatisfied with the current economy and American standards. So it's interesting seeing this come out from CNN talking about this as if, again, they're talking about some path forward being different, even though Joe Biden's came out and said that Kamala Harris is a huge part of all the policies that have been driven. She was the border czar. She was the Ukraine and Russia negotiations czar. And all these things seem to end up failing here. So seeing CNN put out a poll here on the last 4 years, being extremely dissatisfied, being extremely angry, is probably going to roll over into a negative effect here for the left and the outcome of that. Very interesting to see from there as well. More breaking news here. I'm going to just scroll through some of these charts here in the latest. Well, let's actually just go to top here real quick. So I want to find a few more in real-time polls here. It looks like everybody's talking about the like button being changed for, of course, Donald Trump. Amish, though, are now voting for Trump in Pennsylvania. Samuel Arms brought this up here. Here's some pictures if you guys weren't familiar.
This is incredible.
Incredible. Yeah. The Amish coming out and having carriage parades.
This is just like the Lord of the Rings when the trees stepped in to finish off the battle.
Yes.
The Ents have arrived.
Like, oh my God, this is what we needed here.
The Ents are here. It's over 100,000.
Wait. We got somebody coming in from the couch. Hold on.
You believe this election could be essentially won by the crypto enthusiasts out there, because there's 40, 50 million people in America that vote. I'm sorry, that the whole crypto. So it's crypto and Amish. Mm-hmm. That's what's turning the vote.
Yeah,
I love it, and just a lack of any policy whatsoever.
What is astounding to me is the Amish are very You know what this? You got to think of it. They're disconnected from a lot of the internet, so they're not seeing CNN. They're not seeing Fox News. They're not seeing. Correct me if I'm wrong. They do not have television.
That is correct.
So
they don't use any technology.
The fact that they're out here voting for Trump speaks volumes when considering the fact that
we ain't the same on the game.
Of course, CNN or Fox News. But check out this video. It's 12 seconds long. I think this is the coolest thing ever.
Hey, Donald Trump is your president, and if you like it or not, see the energy you had with Barack. Cause you know this Trump
what's
train.
crazy is they hand built every single one of these. You know.
And who are you voting for?
Here you go.
Donald Trump.
This is an interviewer interviewing, of course, multiple Amish voters.
Donald Trump. Are you Amish? Can I ask? Awesome. Yep. And so the Amish are going to be coming out to vote this year?
Some of them, yeah.
Right. What has caused so many of the Amish to register to vote this year?
Probably just they want to get out and vote and make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you guys been affected this past 4 years underneath the Biden-Harris administration?
I would say definitely, yeah.
And in what ways has the Amish community been affected?
One way is that with Trump, the Amish had, I would say, they had more freedom, and with the Biden administration, there was not, it started getting tighter and tighter. And
I just heard yesterday that 180,000 Amish are registered now because of what happened last year. Someone Democrat went in and tried to shut down a guy's operation. He was doing like organic farming or something, and the billboard's actually in Pennsylvania Dutch. It's not even in English. It says to go out and vote.
Oh, really?
For Trump, yeah.
Yeah, because if you guys don't know this, English ain't their first language, or I think it might be, but they speak a lot of Dutch as well. Crazy to see that type of exposure coming, and that's again Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, in pouring out, I think it was because the milk was unpasteurized. It didn't meet like the FDA standards per se. But we see the poison that's able to make it through FDA standards. And a lot of American food is actually illegal to sell in Europe. Like you just went to Italy. You see the difference in the out here.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of little kids, and I really try hard to feed them good food. It is very, very difficult to find food that is not injected with poison here in the United States. And to see them take aim at the Amish and their food production and this arbitrary choice, like we got real mad about the squirrel and the euthanization of the squirrel and the raccoon, right? And I was also just as mad.
Rest in peace, Peanut.
Rest in peace, Peanut. And Fred.
Yes.
But when I saw them taking aim at, natural food that the Amish were making and pouring that out as well, the administrative state wasting resources on going after good food, it is extremely enraging to me as someone that really wants my kids to.
It's alarming to me that a lot of people are trying to bash on RFK. In fact, Pearl Mania, someone that I used to follow on TikTok, that's a complete DNC sellout, is like, save the Doritos. They're going to cancel the Doritos.
Yeah.
And it's like, what you guys don't realize is it just tells me he's probably never traveled outside the United States, or he's just incompetent, because we're not banning Doritos. We're not banning Cheerios. We're not banning Cheez-Its. What we're banning is the red dyes. And all of these, there's still Cheez-Its and Doritos in Europe and South America, et cetera. Just a lot of these countries have banned the chemicals like red dyes and all of these subcategory chemicals.
They're going through extra steps and millions of dollars of machinery, raw materials, and infrastructure to put these ingredients into the food that are actually being found to be very, very harmful to us over time. So they're going through extra steps. I mean, it was good that you went to Italy and you were able to eat better food. Like,
dude, it killed me coming back. It's like I got used to. I didn't even know this, dude. It sent me down the rabbit hole of enriched wheat. All of our wheats have pesticides in them, and that's like when you adjust for multiple weeks in Europe and you come back, you can't even eat pasta without it like hurting you. Like you have to readjust back to the atmosphere. I came back the day I got back. I had Chick-fil-A, threw up.
Well, and
it's not because that's not even, I would argue, from the weak stomach. It's just I completely detoxed from all of the, like literally just all of the corrupted chemicals in our food. And so when I just ate back into that, it hurt. It just destroyed me.
Well, and speaking of chemicals in our food, that actually has become a hot button thing. And that was one of my favorite things that Joe Rogan talked about, was getting chemicals out of your food. Being healthy as a nation shouldn't really be a hot take, saying like,
it's political,
hey, we want to be healthy. That shouldn't be something that needs to be, we need to have a conversation about this, or we need to have some debate. It should be like, no, wait a minute. As Americans, we don't want tons of chemicals in our food.
Yeah.
But somehow they're making it political. They're like, save the Doritos.
This plays into politics, though. Because you guys are talking about how are people so disconnected? How are they, I think Hannah brought it up, is like now Google searches for who is running for president are going up. And we're like, wow, how is that even possible? It's possible through the sad American diet and by our gut biomes. Okay, so we have 80% good bacteria, 20% bad bacteria in a normal setup for the human body. Now we have flipped the script where we have 20% good bacteria and 80% bad bacteria in our guts here in the United States. It makes people depressed. makes them unable to logically think through and cognitively make solid decisions. It takes a lot of that thought process capability away. And so that's where we're left with this dystopian possibility of Kamala Harris potentially grabbing the attention and votes of enough people to try and arbitrage the number and make this not too big to.
Yeah.
And that's the situation that we're in. And it really, our decision making and our health, our mindset derives from the power that we have within our stomachs. And that's been taken away from us over the
head of health, Biden. Rachel L.
I'll
Levine.
pull that one up. Pull that one up. Yeah, this is the head of health.
This is the head of the health department right now under the Biden-Harris administration. Transgender individual, which in every right, I'm sorry, if you're transgender injecting hormones in your body, you should not be having any, you shouldn't be allowed 3 feet within deciding the policies of what goes into just natural bodies organically. So, you know, this is who the head of our health department is currently. And it's why it blows my mind when people act like Donald Trump's health isn't going to be a good concept or plan when you have somebody like RFK advocating against this, somebody who is the most fit presidential candidate by far. The dude's doing, you know, he's lifting, he's cut as heck, he's into his food, but people don't even realize you can't even just go to the grocery store and get clean food. Even if you buy organic, it's still sprayed with pesticides. I forgot what the number was. It's over 50% for sure, though, when kids have chronic disease and disorders in America at this point now by the age, I forgot what the age was. It was a very early age, though. And it's because of the food. It's because of the lobbying.
2 hot topics right here. Fluoride, right? Somebody, we got MJ in the chat says fluoride in the toothpaste. And then Sheila Stacks Stats, one of our members, asking about politicians who have taken the most money from Big Pharma. So, Drew, can you pull up politicians taking money from Big Pharma? And then let's talk about this. Fluoride in the water. Is that controversial take? And we do have, actually, speaking of European, we do have, you know, live guests from the UK. Leo is in studio with us now. If you want to chime in on anything there. I think you do. Yes, slide it on. And there you go. There they are. He's joining Kelly on the couch.
There we go. No, it's awesome to be here. I think it's, I wouldn't rather be anywhere else. I think it's such a pivotal time in the world right now. This election, personally in my life, I don't think we've ever seen an election more important. Furthermore, one that's got more attention.
Yeah.
I remember a few years ago, and I guess it comes with being young, but I was always like, oh, I'm not going to
pull that mic.
And obviously, I can't vote here. Well, I mean,
ask,
it depends what state I'm in.
Yeah.
Depends what state I'm in, of course. I was, you know, tempted to go to California. But, you know, I finally think people are getting it, just how important it is. And it's really, you know, I think on one side it's sad where politics has got to. We have really 2 extremes. Now we have the extreme far left, but they're also trying to paint what we currently have on the right as, you know, Trump as extremely far right, which is completely wrong. I think the reason it's so pivotal, I think once we do get here, once we do see however this election concludes, I really think we either go down a way where we see some good life come back to politics. I think that's one of the reasons why people like Trump so much is because he's finally, you know, brought some realness back to politics. It's not just like we still see with Harris reading off a teleprompter and just lying to your face on public through ads, giving 2 different messages to 2 different states about what she's going to do once she's in office, which is either one, she's going to end the war in Gaza because apparently it's a genocide, but on the other side, she's telling another state, which is predominantly Jews, that, you know, she's going to continue supporting Israel. I think it's the most blatant form of mockery that they're pushing onto the American people. And I really think the Democrats, where they are right now, they've gotten away with so much. They're almost arrogant. And it's sad to see that you still have so many people supporting them and not being able to see through the lies that out. But yeah, I'm, you know, praying that Trump wins. I truly think that'll be the best thing for America. And it will kind of put a awesome reset on what politics is, because as much as people don't like to say it, like, America really does run the world. They are the powerhouse. They're the reserve currency still. And you need someone, the chief of America, what do you call it?
Commander-in-chief.
Commander-in-chief. You need someone who is really going to be in a position of power, can handle foreign affairs, and actually set the
yeah, that's a good point, too. Foreign affairs, I feel like, is one of those things, foreign policy, that Trump is a much more capable for negotiating deals on behalf of the fast. But
I do want to say real quick, guys, everybody's going into break here. We're less than an hour away now from the results of this election starting to be entered into, of course, the electoral votes here and the maps for us to start projecting who is going to win the outcome of the United States. So if you guys haven't already, hit that like button, share this video. There's over 1,000 of you guys watching, probably 2,000 across all of our platforms right now. So make sure you guys are restreaming, reposting, and just liking the videos in general. If you're on X, of course, if you're retweeting, you're gonna have a chance to enter to win $50 here tonight. But of course, guys, 1 hour. 1 hour away. I feel like everybody's at the edge of their seats. We have pizza showing up here in just a moment. I wanted Leo to touch on, though, the freedom of speech issue, right? Kamala Harris, very scary. Wants to come out here and get rid of freedom. She hates the First Amendment. They're very vocal about having social media companies restrict users from being able to argue their own beliefs. Tim Walz is a huge advocate of this. Hillary Clinton's a huge advocate of this. And it's not disputable. I mean, they have vocalized saying we want to suppress misinformation is what they call. But what has that led to here in the UK?
Well, I think it's a great thing for Americans to do is look at the state of the UK right now. And that will give you a really clean grasp of what could eventually start happening here. For example, I cannot remember.
Walking up there and sitting in that seat. I want to see if I can. Yeah. That should be able to reach the whole room.
We'll see.
I was going to say, you guys did have someone, and you might specifically know who it was. But he quite literally said that the First Amendment is acting as a roadblock. The First Amendment is acting as a roadblock to basically them tackling misinformation, which sadly to them misinformation is whatever they deem misinformation to be. But the worst thing is, and a great example is what we saw happening in the UK a few months ago. We've kind of had what you guys had. We had a conservative, sorry. They were in for about 12 years, and then we've just had, what they try and always pitch it as is Labour came in, who are progressive or for the people government body, just a big farce basically, and they were going to come in and reset. And just like they did last time, pretty much everything they said in their manifesto, they've completely backtracked on and lied. So a good example is we had now we actually know a terror attack happened in the UK a few months ago, where sadly rest in peace to them, three young girls were killed. And there was huge riots in the UK, and it was all based on the fact that of misinformation, because the government refused to put any clear information out there. And the point I'm getting to is people were quite literally just sharing opinions online. And of course, when there is no information being put up by the government, when they knew the answers, they knew who did it, they refused to put names out. They tried to paint a picture of the person that did these stabbings as a young kid. He was a young man. He was 17 years old, but the only pictures they would share of him were of him as in primary school, as an 8-year-old. And they said he's not a terrorist. He's an English boy. And there's nothing crazy, but it's now come out that they knew all along that he quite literally had an Al-Qaeda textbook at his house, and he was developing chemical weapons in his house. I think it's called ricin. So all along, they knew that he was quite literally, whether he was a full-on terrorist or he was being indoctrinated. They knew this, but there are people currently serving prison sentences in the UK for calling stuff out for what it is. And it's very scary, and these are for Facebook posts.
Well, the Labour Party, I've heard a lot of conversation about the movement against the farming industry, local farming industry.
Just happened. It's
just
horrific.
happened. I mean, I'm seeing reports. There was a promise of no family farm tax. It looks like the Labour Party has broken that promise.
It was they've
really
done
hard.
It's many things they've done that too as well. They said they wouldn't be increasing taxes. That's the first thing they did in their bill. They keep making up that there's these black holes, but if you look at where the Labour are actually placing our money, that you could easily fill that black hole by just restricting other things. Like one of the first things they did is basically increase the pay of all people within the public sector. Basically, I think it was something around 11 billion pounds. Basically, and bearing in mind they're saying there's a 22 billion pound black hole. So apparently the first priority is to increase the pay of everyone who is working in the government, which makes absolutely no sense, especially when...
Well, it does if you're the government.
Well, exactly, it does for them, but when you act as a party for the people,
right,
it really is silly. And I think one of the worst things being pushed right now, and it's happening over here as well, is when governments come in and say, hey, we're for the middle class, we're for the people. And the first thing they always try and pitch us is the rich need to pay more, the rich need to do this. But when you actually look at the statistics, the rich, like, bear in mind, they're a very small percentage, and the rich we're talking about is like the top 1%, 0.1%, etc. They're like, we need to increase their taxes. The only thing that is ever going to do, and history has proven this many times, is push them out the country.
Yeah, they're going to move.
Exactly.
They've got the means to do it. And also, I'm real quick, I need you guys to act like you like each other. Sit real close. Josh, twist.
Yeah, no, you're good. I am going to pull up here, though, because we're running into the final hour here. I'm going to pull up some thoughts here from analysts just projecting what it's going to look like for the electoral votes here. On, of course, the balance of the Senate and House races right now.
To maintain their control. There's also some seats where the Republicans could be on the defense. There's been a lot of chatter about whether or not Colin Allred can actually outpace Ted Cruz in Texas. There's an interesting race in Florida with Rick Scott. And then an independent challenger coming out of nowhere, giving us an unexpected challenge in a state that nobody expected a senatorial challenge to happen. So that's what we're tracking in the Senate. Finally, before we go, Andrew, let's talk about the House here. Again, a lot of gray. 218. That's going to be the magic number. This map is much more complex. We're starting to see every single district. There's competitive districts from as far east as Maine to as far west as Alaska. So many competitive races on the West Coast, including in southwestern Washington, Bend, Oregon, the Central Valley in California, Southern California. Those are House races that could determine the balance of the House, and those are races that may not be called for a long time. So I say all that to say, Andrew, that this building is important tonight because it's going to let us know just how powerful of a president we're going to be talking about.
You know, that's so true, Austin, depending on who wins the presidency tonight. You know, will they have a unified government on Capitol Hill or a divided government on Capitol Hill? You know, will Chuck Schumer in the Senate keep his job? Will Speaker Johnson on the House side keep his job? All of those questions remain outstanding right now. Austin, thanks so much. If it's election night, you do need a map. You got a map, and we'll check in very soon here. In the meantime, though, so many of these storylines will be happening on social media, particularly. We're going to get a lot of our news there, because even on election night, breaking news will happen live, raw, and unfiltered, as it usually does. And to join us to track all things on social media, my colleague there in the Live Now newsroom, Christina Evans. And Christina, what are you watching for tonight on social media?
Yeah, Andrew, it's great to be here with you guys on election night.
Interesting that they go to social media now to get this coverage.
Oh, yeah.
Social media, much better media than mainstream media.
Us do when we're
Which,
watching
by the
television.
way, Elon Musk is now at Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump here. So hopefully we'll get some guests calling in to give us that perspective, what it looks like on the scene there. His entire family waiting the results here. But yeah, it's everybody's looking at social media. It's where all the views are.
That we're seeing pop up on social media. I do want to show you just a look now as what we're dealing with here in our social center. Here's the look. We've got all of our boards in here pulling in these posts from X as well as Instagram and TikTok as things are starting to break on the internet. And when it comes to some of those storylines, an example of one that we're going to be following right now, I want to show you here on your screen a look at the story that's now coming out of Milwaukee. So this is some breaking news that we did just get into our newsroom as well. The city of Milwaukee says that it will recount around 30,000 absentee ballots after discovering each of the 13 high-speed tabulators here at Central Count had an open door. Right now, officials aren't sure of how that happened. They will zero out those machines and start again. Now, this is according to our news partners there at Fox 6 in Milwaukee. But again, another important storyline that we're covering there in Milwaukee. So what we have learned is that the city spokesperson, Jeff Fleming, said that those tabulators were sealed, but the doors to those machines were not properly closed. This issue, though, involved early absentee and in-person ballots and has affected all 13 tabulators. Live look that we have there in the city of Milwaukee as we're continuing to follow some of these breaking stories. That's just an example of some of those storylines that we're going to be following here on social media. Again, as you're stepping away from the TV, maybe you need to go pick up your kids from school or run a quick errand to the grocery store. Pick up your dinner tonight. Make sure you have your phone with you. You can follow us at Live Now Fox. I'm going to push our TikTok.
And of course, guys, we have that pizza here. Here's some from the opposite side over at CBS. Talk about some polls here, both approvals and disapprovals. And then we'll bring up the charts here again. And actually, I do want to pull up the Bitcoin chart. Right now, we're back up to 500 here. Still up on the position, still nicely hedged here, awaiting the results.
Yeah, and after we watch a clip, we want us to do some Bitcoin predictions of where we think the price will be at the end of the day.
Perfect. I'm ready for it.
Harris campaign headquarters at Howard University in Washington. And CBS Mornings co-host Tony DeCopel is at Trump headquarters in West Palm Beach, Florida. We're going to kick things off with Nancy. Nancy, what are you seeing?
Good evening. I'm in the quad at Howard University in downtown D.C., which tonight is going to be serving as the watch party location for Kamala Harris, who, of course, attended Howard University, feels very strongly about her alma mater. When will she come out and speak? We don't know. It all depends on the returns, I'm told by top aides. Also depends on what Donald Trump does tonight. Does he preemptively declare victory before all the votes are in or before all the votes are counted? What do they do then? I'm told that they are prepared for a number of eventualities. She has stayed largely out of sight today. She did a slew of drive time radio interviews this morning across the battleground states. Other than that, I'm told that she has been spending time with family. That's a tradition for her to have dinner with her family members on election nights. She also made a quick visit to Democratic Party headquarters here in D.C. to thank the staffers, thank the volunteers there who have been behind her during this 108-day sprint to the finish line after she became the nominee by surprise after President Biden dropped out under pressure from his party. She also did a little bit of phone banking at Democratic headquarters, surprising a couple of voters in battlegrounds.
So I wanted to pull this up right here. This was funny. The share banking there. With her on that video, she said that she was taking a call live or whatever it was. Let me pull up the clip here. But breaking news, it was caught that she was pretending to make that vote. Now, this is just normal, guys. These politicians, like, they're not actually going door to door. Donald Trump's not, working at actual McDonald's. That's impossible. Like, they have to vet. They have Secret Service. Like, you can't just have a president walk up to a random door. That's not how life works, especially when there's been 2 assassination attempts on one of the candidates. But check this out here from C-SPAN, pausing it here and showing that, of course, when she turns the phone, check it out. She's not on a phone call whatsoever. She's just on her camera. And accidentally turned around the call there. So faking a phone call, which is interesting. But that's just how all these political stunts generally are. But that happened, of course, just hours before. And she's like thanking some person that's not on the phone.
I will say, yes, that is how a lot of these political political stunts go. But I feel like there's very little genuine, it's everything with Kamala is a political stunt. There's very little genuine, actual.
I would argue everything's a political stunt with Trump, though. He's the master of marketing. The everything from McDonald's to even the garbage truck, literally less than 12 hours after Biden slipping and saying Americans are trash. Like,
sure, but his interview with Joe Rogan wasn't.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And that's what I'm saying. Is that's the difference. Is there really isn't. Where do you get actual genuine just question answer conversation type things with them with the Harris administration? That's where my question is. Why is it that just an easy natural conversation when you get asked, hey, what's your plan for this? What are you going to do if it doesn't go according to what you think is going to happen? Like, you just don't get that natural discourse. That's just my
I got the receipts from the top recipients of pharmaceutical and health money. Money from major pharmaceutical PACs. The top of the list here, Joe Biden coming in at $9 million. Kamala Harris, $6 million. Barack Obama coming in at $6 million. Hillary Clinton at $4.5 million. Mitt Romney, a Republican out of Utah, with $3.3 million. And this is likely why we didn't hear any sort of copying. You know how Kamala Harris liked to copy the proposals from RFK and Trump. They were going to take away the tips, the tax on tips as well, but they didn't say anything about cleaning up the health industry. And it's likely because of this amount of payments here. Obviously, Mitch McConnell of the Republicans out of Kentucky. Bernie Sanders, when all of his just lovely views that he has, everyone should be equal and eat the same garbage together. And Ralph Warnock out of Georgia here. So just had to come up with these receipts. And then the little sign behind Kamala Harris, they've adopted the camouflage sign, the camouflage Harrison Waltz sign. It is so cringe. After they sit here and attack people in rural communities for 4 years straight, diminishing their intelligence levels. Kamala Harris said that people in rural areas don't know how to use copying machines, that they just literally cannot even. But then all of a sudden, she's got a camouflage Harris Waltz hat and a camouflage Harris Waltz sign on there. It's just pandering at the last second, which is not going to work.
Well, you want to play some Madden?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Want to play some Madden here? Yeah, I'm looking at the latest election polls coming in here. All of them obviously are finalized at this point, but I wanted to pull up the website here just to show you all of them from Atlas, The Hill, Emerson, all the different groups out there. You can see that right now, as of yesterday, a lot of them do have Trump leading in the polls here. Harris in quite a few of the battleground states, though. You have The Hill, Emerson. Harris taking the lead in Michigan by +2 points. And of course, though, what I wanted to show you here, not the Electoral College, but the battle for Senate here, 50-50. And of course, it's not only important who's going to be the president of the United States today, it's also going to be if the House is divided or not. And in this case, it does look like that is still going to be leaning towards the Democrats here when it comes to the Senate there. The House obviously looks to remain Republican. But I do want to go around here. We got, of course, price predictions coming in. Over the next hour, we're going to be all waiting for, of course, the announcements to roll through. So make sure, again, you're hitting that like button, sharing the stream with all your loved ones, whether or not you're picking up from work. Make sure you get that food. Stay tuned, because at 7 p.m., 45 minutes from now, the results start coming in, and that is when it gets anxiety, or that's when it gets crazy. It's just going to be absolutely anxious here. But looking at the, of course, outcome of this, what is your guys' I want to just go around, and I want to start with this man here, okay?
Yes,
I want to start with this man here, because we actually have somebody that is, I believe, I don't know, you probably voted.
Well, no, put him on. Yeah.
Yeah, he's joining me. He's joining me at the hot seat here.
Okay, that's fine.
Leo,
Yeah,
you can sit in that seat if you'd like.
Either way.
Where's the camera?
You're
right
straight
There's your
across.
line.
Everybody.
Jeremy, I know you're on the opposite side of the spectrum here a little bit. What is your outlook for tonight's elections?
In terms of like a map prediction, is that what you're?
Yes, exactly.
I'm pretty closely following the. I think.
Okay.
In terms of Iowa, I think that Kamala does not have a great shot in North Dakota. I think
Which is Georgia was where we are, by the way. Yeah.
That's sort of where I'm.
47. Yeah, so for you guys that don't know, the Ann Poulter poll here has Harris taking the reins by a 47% chance of winning here versus Donald Trump at the 44, correct?
Make sure you keep that mic close to your.
You gotta hug that chart here. I wanted to pull up her electoral map, though. Let me find the electoral map here in just a moment. But yeah, so here it is. Oh, what the? Did I just get an ad? I just got an ad, folks. AP News has it, you said? I'll pull up an image here. It should just be an image. You see.
Chat, can you guys hear me now? I just turned the mic to on position.
There you go.
Oh, turning the mic to the on position. Yeah, that definitely helps.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
This is the Ann Poulter. So Democrats 270, Republicans 268 here. So winning by quite literally the smallest margin.
The smallest margin. I think this is what's going to happen tonight. And I think that's almost a little bit worrying because, just this election being close is like a nightmare for everybody, right? Because the recounts and sort of who knows if Trump will concede a close election that's not in his favor, that type of thing.
So what is your reasoning here? Because, I mean, you know where our chat stands, and this is why I wanted to bring you on here. I think it's going to be a great discussion.
Sure.
What are you seeing that makes you believe? Are you just going off Ann Poulter's poll specifically, that she's been historically accurate? Or is there a reason why you believe she's going to be leading in terms of the polling? Because there's polling out there that goes both ways, heavily polarized. Why Ann Poulter?
Her methodology is something that is really attractive to me. I think a lot of people, they do a lot of monkey business with polls where they are selecting demographics, or they're maybe like asking who you voted for in 2020 to sort of get that be like sort of thing. And her methodology is like pretty ironclad. She gets a huge swath of a lot of different places. I think it's just an intelligent way to do it. And then, maybe it's also wishful thinking my part. I'm sort of in the blue wave. I wore the blue today, so.
Is there a specific reason why you voted for her? Or votes are already in, they're casted.
For Kamala Harris?
Yes. Why not Trump?
It's just going to be so inflammatory to the chat.
That's why you're here.
I don't want to vote for somebody that tried to overthrow the government.
I wanted to prove to our audience that we have both sides of the spectrum in these offices.
Let me ask you about that. So you said you don't want to vote for somebody you feel like tried to overthrow the government.
Sure.
Why?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I think that
that was the wrong question. I would say, why do you think?
No, I'm curious because I think less government is good.
Sure.
So I, a lot of Bitcoins think subverting government authority isn't necessarily a negative thing. So that's one question I have. The second question is, why do you think, like, what did he do that made you think he was trying to overthrow it? So.
Great. So to the first question, I think is actually the more interesting one, and it's never the one people ask, right? Why would it be bad to overthrow the government?
Right,
but
considering that's how our nation was founded.
Of course. There's the Churchill quote, though, where it's like, democracy is the worst form of government. How's it go, Josh? It's like your favorite one, where it's like, democracy is just the worst one, but it's the only one that like has held up that we've tried so far.
You're paraphrasing so far.
Yeah.
I don't know it off the top of my head, so I'll pull it up for you.
Anyway, I just think that our systems and institutions might be like maybe flawed, but that's how you get room for the innovation that made way for Bitcoin, right? All the entrepreneurs, that make it in this great country and stuff. So like the government might be flawed and there might be like problems with the execution, but I think why democracy is the best we've got, maybe. Oh, here we go. Democracy is the worst form of government except for all those other forms that have been tried.
Oh, Winston Churchill.
Yeah. I said Churchill.
I didn't know you said that. That's my bad. Yeah.
Oh, cool. You got a map up here? We can.
Yeah, this is going to be the live vote here. I can pull up one as well as you want me to do that. We can actually embed, but this is just ready for the 30 minutes from now when we start receiving the actual votes.
So I think that even though our government is flawed, I think that like a violent overthrow in the year, like after the technology age, is just not like necessary or good. It's not going to help solve the problems that ordinary Americans.
But if a violent
face.
overthrow has never happened, why do you think that's going to be an outcome?
That's interesting. So in the United States, we have something called the peaceful transfer of power.
Yes.
Right. And then in January 6th of 2021 or whatever, it was like an attempt to subvert that peaceful transfer of power. I think that peaceful transfer of power not happening could lead to like
well, I would say so. On January 21st of the inauguration, was there a peaceful transfer of power? Was anybody sued or jailed for an insurrection? That's my conversation.
People were jailed for participating in the insurrection.
Not an insurrection, though. Was there a person jailed for an insurrection, or was there a person jailed for rioting, which is 100% should be the case?
Should be the case. So you don't believe it's an insurrection?
No, I believe just like BLM had terrible riots and people should go to jail, they should go to jail. But I do not believe there's an insurrection, which is why Donald Trump was never found guilty of an actual insurrection.
Here's the difference, though. When people were marching to the Capitol on January 6th, what were they marching there to do?
Peacefully and Trump said go peacefully and patriotically, correct?
Yeah.
So now there's a conversation.
He also said you have to fight like hell to protect this country, though.
That's true. That's true. That's why we go to war all the time.
I don't want to go to. Again, he said peacefully and patriotically, which is what matters. I mean, because then you're going to go, what type of violent rhetoric exists, and we can go down the road of threat to democracy, that type of stuff that's existing today. But Jan 6 specifically, okay.
I have so many things.
If you again. Because I believe the elections weren't stolen. I believe they were unfair. There's a big difference.
Great, of course.
But when you go to January 6th specifically, there's a lot that's going on in congressional hearings right now with, like, example, Mayorkas, who is the head of the Department of Homeland Security, saying that there was federal agents within this crowd. So the conversation I would have on Gen 6, just like we've seen in Indonesia, Malaysia, South Africa, Indonesia, Libya, et cetera, all across the world, when we fund certain NGOs or groups to help incentivize certain outcomes of an event, I look at Jan 6, there was people that were bad on both sides. There was left protesting that was making it angry. There was people on the right that it started ramping up there, and it turned into a riot. And people should be prosecuted based off that. But it wasn't an attempt to necessarily overthrow that government.
So when the crowd was chanting, hang Mike Pence, why did they want to hang Mike Pence? What did they want Mike Pence to do?
Well, that we can't answer. We can't get inside the heads of other people. But let me ask you this.
Okay, great.
You're basically saying, and just to summarize, that you feel like Trump should have conceded the election. That, fair to say?
It's definitely fair to say that I think he should have conceded the election.
Do you know that Hillary did not concede the election? She contested.
She contested it, but she did eventually concede the election. Trump still hasn't conceded the election.
Still has not conceded.
Neither did
the guy who lost to Bush. So we have Al Gore.
Al Gore
never conceded the election.
He did concede after the recount trial.
No, I don't think he ever did.
Al Gore conceded. I don't think Hillary Clinton did, though.
No, that's my point, is saying, like, I don't think we've had clear conceding elections from the loser in quite some time. And so I think it's unfair to say that one fact is the reason.
You're legally allowed to question the results of any election.
Of course.
So, I mean, if you're looking for a constitution, I would say this would be my counter to that would be, Would you agree or not agree that the hoax of the Hunter Biden laptop story that swung millions of voters in swing states,
right,
that ended up being true, did that make the election fair or not fair?
You mean the suppression of the story?
Not only the suppression, the lies of the story, saying it wasn't true, that Trump's lying, that he's using it as propaganda.
That story was only suppressed for 14 hours.
No, it was suppressed for 2 years.
No. You can fact check that. It was suppressed. They have it on the Twitter files. They didn't allow access to that link for
So
14 hours.
CNN, MSNBC, Rachel Maddow.
Hold on. Give me a second. So there was a reporter that came with this information to CBS in 2 years before they ran it.
Sure.
And they had the information, and they came out and said they have no substantial information to verify this, but they had the proof, and they ran a false story that said they did not have it.
My only question is, if you believe that Trump was trying to overthrow the government, can you make the same argument that the Democrats have been legally attacking Trump for the last, and they've also incited a ton of violence towards him? He's been nearly assassinated twice.
Yeah.
And that was down to the doing of the Democrats through their words.
Wasn't he nearly assassinated by like a Ukrainian agent and then also like a former Republican high schooler?
Well, no,
who was like a member of his
he was
rival
a
club.
registered Republican, which I don't think ended up being true.
But he doesn't sound like a Democrat to me, right? He's like a proud member of his high school rifle
came
club.
From the money, right? It
Yeah, but
came from
you
Israel.
have
Let's just
one
say it.
side saying, "Go to the Capitol, peacefully and patriotically,
fight like hell, take
and
our
then
country
now
back."
you have an entire party calling Trump Hitler and Republicans Nazis. Is that not a violent rhetoric that would be more extreme than saying approach this peacefully and patriotically?
Is Kamala Harris calling Trump Hitler or Nazi?
She has, and she's referred to it multiple times.
She's referred to Trump being Hitler multiple times. It's just like so
yes.
hard for me to believe that when she's so like.
She has done it on camera
monitored.
dozens of times, responding to reporters about the rally specifically in Madison Square Garden. With the recent take, you even had, again, and then you had Obama though, and even if it's not just her, which she has alluded to him being Hitler and Nazis. Obama just came out yesterday and alluded to the fine people hoax again, saying Trump looks at Nazis as fine people.
As they're fine
which
people.
was debunked notoriously.
Yeah, Snopes or whatever says that it's a lie whenever we bring up fine people, I guess.
I think, yeah.
He never said that they were fine people.
That's what I'm saying.
He condemned them.
I'm like agreeing that.
So, look, and I think there's valid reasoning, and I appreciate you coming up here today as well, but I think there's valid reasoning.
Yeah, we love you, Jeremy.
And I want chat to, these are the conversations you just need to have, because there's people that are very worried about that if Donald Trump were to lose today, that there's going to somehow be a civil war, which I don't believe no matter what outcome that takes place tonight, there isn't going to be anything of that magnitude. Now, I think we should all expect and can all agree that this is the most polarized election in history, and there will probably be riots tonight. This is why they're bordering up walls. It doesn't matter who wins. They're looking at both sides there.
700 people, Americans, have spent a large amount of time in prison for being present at the Capitol during that protest. And that was right after we watched organizations that were funneled money by a guy named Jorge Oros. He rhymes with Jorge Oros, who funneled billions of dollars into a organizational protest movement, which cost 60 to 70 billion dollars of damage to American cities. So they're able to free willy go out there and cause 60 to 70 billion dollars worth of damage, kill countless cops, countless civilians. But the moment that we have a January 6th protest that's pushed into a near riot situation, but the only person that died that day was a protester, wasn't a police officer, it was a protester. So this is a situation that we have to take seriously. And, you know, for everyone that's sitting and said, oh, everyone's probably going to calm down, I will tell you that there are millions, if not tens of millions of American men, of family men who feel exactly the same way as I do. We've been called racist. We've been stepped on by the media for 10 years for our political viewpoints and speaking out against it. We've been unemployed. We've been made so that we can't be banked. And you spend nearly a decade being dehumanized by a war machine, a pharmaceutical war machine, that is now using my tax dollars to fund both sides of World War III. And you really ask yourself, how much more are people like me willing to take? That's what you need to ask yourself.
I really think that a lot of your conjecture about the other side is like you've been whipped into a frenzy by like a hostile media environment, right? Because like you and I have talked at this office, and when we get down to the issues, we mostly agree on almost everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's like there's like a little bit of a disagreement on like maybe like a tax plan that should benefit the supply side or the demand side, right? But when it comes down to like people should be able to raise families and make money owning businesses and stuff, like almost everybody's in agreement here. So I think that like, you know, people have been calling you like all these, you know, horrible things, and they've been presenting the like your way of life. Like who?
Well, it's
you
not
know,
even
like
calling it. They also were in a situation, and this was something that I disagreed with Trump on during Operation Warp Speed. Right? I absolutely would not jab. I got dislodged from a job that I helped build this company. We're a 6-person operation making $6 million a year, and they were willing to dislodge me out of a company I helped build because of the refusal of that. And so that is one negative thing that I saw about Trump. But guess what? The economy was doing amazing, and he had half of the American civilization needed some sort of medical procedure to make themselves feel okay about going back into
breaking news. I want to continue the conversation. The results have started being counted in Indiana and Kentucky. It's very early, so it's like 5%, but they are starting to roll in. So just reminding everybody to hit that like button, subscribe, repost, share this live stream, because we're about to be here with you guys the next few hours and lock in on, you know, the results of this election here. But continue on. Sorry.
Real quick, I had a question while we're on the subject of war. I'd be just curious if you would agree with this, Jeremy, that considering, you know, regardless of side, left or right, we've experienced less war with Trump in president than any other president for the last, you know, several decades, I guess, several years.
I think it's funny that a lot of the times conservatives will say like the economy was great under Trump, and then when you bring up like, well, what about in, you know, late 2019, 2020 when there was the pandemic, and he's like, well, he wasn't in control of that, but he's somehow in control of like the entire world, like not being at war. And by the way, his record on war like isn't actually that stellar if you look at it without a bias, right? He basically surrendered Afghanistan to the Taliban without involving the nation that we installed in Afghanistan. And then also, you know, he allowed
wrong.
He allowed the continuation of the Russian annex of Crimea. That like happened under him. He basically sent a signal to Putin that he could do whatever he wants.
Are you saying yes or no? Yes or no? Hold on. Yes or no? Less war under Trump.
There was objectively less war under Trump, so the answer to that is yes.
Okay. And I don't think the argument though is, I think it was unfair to even, there was no new wars initiated under Trump because there's still global conflicts, right? We were bombing Yemen, Syria. There's other issues that we had with drones and stuff, but there was no new wars established. So to say that, and that's the first time in 32 years that there was no new wars developed, and then you have multiple happen under this administration. If you're just looking at this from a simple, non-biased perspective, the only president in the last 32 years, if you're anti-war, was Donald Trump.
I mean, maybe I would have to concede that. I guess so. Yeah. But the issue is that I don't feel like Donald Trump has. I honestly don't feel like either side has a satisfactory answer to the ongoing global conflict in Israel-Palestine. I don't trust Donald Trump to rein in Putin in this Ukrainian conflict, and that's because he's expressed like favor to Putin. You know, he basically loves dictators. You're right. He had that meeting with the North Korean dictator. Though? What's wrong with loving? Let
me add some context to that.
Sure.
I'm not saying what's wrong with the sense of them being an evil. I'm saying what's wrong in the sense of them respecting a foreign leader who's responsible for managing 1 billion or 2 billion people. Because when you're talking about China or Putin, they're saying, oh, Trump has close ties and relations to them. To me, that means he's going to have a way better chance at negotiating rather than Biden or Harris, who simply say, don't, which was their famous words for, of course, Iran. So, you know, when I look at this, it's not a level of, oh, they're best friends and buddies. You can still condemn what they're doing. But as Americans, one, we can't finance us initiating democracy in China. That's never going to happen. These are cultures that have been around for millennia, right? So what is wrong with a president having close ties and good relations that will allow further progression in diplomacy with foreign dictators?
I mean, the problem is that I just like don't think Trump's going to do that either, right? He wants to install the 20% across the board tariff. Now, how's that going to like help with our relationship with these other countries?
I love that you brought that up.
How good. We're going to talk about tax plans.
So, for example, what I would probably relate to is more importantly, tariffs are very nuanced. It's very complex. You can't just say tariffs abroad the board are just bad. If they were bad, they wouldn't have left all the Trump era policies and tariffs on China for the last 3.5 years.
Okay.
Right? So when it comes to tariffs, one, those are for negotiation efforts, which are going to come with these foreign dictators. So the biggest one people are worried about is China.
Yes.
Right? They're worried about us putting tariffs on and having an immediate impact on, of course, U.S. consumers.
As a business owner myself, as an entrepreneur, it's like the one that just like completely terrifies me. And then you have Joe Biden, you know, trying to help with manufacturing rate. He passed the CHIPS Act so that we could do, make the
You know
chips
what he
in-house
included
instead of
in that?
Taiwan. What do you include in the CHIPS Act?
Tariffs.
Tariffs in the
Yeah.
CHIPS
On
Act.
China, semiconductors.
But Taiwan Semiconductor's new plant in Nevada is already outpacing the Taiwanese plant.
That's great, by the way.
And-
talk about we agree on so much.
So it's bringing the tariffs and that pass is bringing manufacturing and jobs to the States. Correct.
Great.
Perfect. So this is just a perfect example of tariffs are good sometimes.
Okay, I can, sure, but an across the board tariff is going to hurt small business owners in the United States.
It's a growing
That's just
pain,
like
though.
a fact.
You have to acknowledge that there's a growing pain. When you return production to the United States, you're going to have a few years where it's going to be more expensive. You're going to have a less expansive availability of raw materials to pull from because we're used to this global interconnection of goods. But with that time frame of pain, because the prices will go high, then you have the recreation of manufacturing plants and jobs here in the United States. In the long term, it is much, much better to return that manufacturing back to the nation of the United States rather than utilizing these third and second world countries that we do as our dumping grounds, where they have to go through all of the after effects of using those raw materials on their landscapes. If we want to produce things, then we should take responsibility for the after effects of producing those goods instead of using everyone as our dumping ground and leaving their forest in absolute disarray because we want our fancy palm oil lotions, we want all the little goods that the females that are eco-activists out here love using on their face. Meanwhile, they're burning entire rainforests down for it. And that is the result of globalism. And that is the result of our consumer economy using the rest of the world as our dumping ground. With tariffs, it's going to be painful, but it can be good for humanity over a 10 years time frame. You just have to be
Pretty salient point. I almost always agree a lot with sentiment, and there's a lot there about curbing the consumerist machine that I agree with wholeheartedly.
Yeah, that's why we like you, Jeremy. This is a good conversation. Really appreciate you being on. +1 in the chat for Jeremy.
No, dude, chat hates it. They're like,
no, that's a lie. There's people that are watching that are like, they. Well,
no, I'll read you something right here.
Have you voted?
Elijah R says, I like this guy. He understands the other side's point of view, but he still believes his own values. So you got some love in the chat.
They said I was low T. How can I be low T? I love to work out.
Do they call me?
I go camping.
We call they call the chat calls Josh.
I'm Wonder Bread. I'm Twinkle
White
Sticks. I sound like a Minecraft skeleton when I'm fucking. I don't know. They get crazy with it, dude.
And I will say, by the way,
that's crazy.
Take all of my takes with a grain of salt tonight. I really don't know anything about politics. I'm just here to start shit. So
no, and I think it's just good to have these open discussions because notice how no one here is screaming or muting or freaking out enraged here. So yeah, and I mean, this just goes to show, and this is, by the way, what politics were 8 years ago. I mean, even if you watch Mitt Romney versus Obama, again, Democrats versus Republicans, 80% of the issues they agreed on, 20% of the issues they did not. And they usually had candid conversations.
I know. Remember John McCain stopping the person that was complaining about Obama being an Arab? No. He's a good man. Those types of things. Yeah, it's we've really strayed away from policy debates. They almost never happen, right? We're talking about the nuance of tariffs versus maybe some of the Harris tax, the what is it? The tax credit for first time home buyers, the tax credit, the child tax credit, the things that Harris has proposed. I'm a big fan of across the board, and I'm maybe not a fan of Donald Trump's. What is it? It's the car interest payment loan tax credit.
Oh, reducing to 10% interest rates on credit cards.
But we're just so far away.
So why are you against that, but for adding a $25,000 first-time home or tax credit, which is obviously going to inflate prices of homes? So what's your balance to that?
So is the interest car loan credit going to inflate the prices of cars as well? Is that always going to be your position on tax credits toward
It depends.
things?
So, my argument to this would be not just about Trump and Harris, it's who their cabinet members are.
Sure.
And so it's going to be the advisory to the economic policies that go with those things. So for example, RFK is a huge advocate of limiting the mortgage rates on houses to 3% for new home buyers and individuals against big corporations. Kamala Harris doesn't want anything to do with that, but that itself would give a fighting chance for Americans to be able to invest in homes, not adding a $25,000 to a first-time home loan buyer credit. Because all that does, well, here's $25K, but the mortgage rate's still at 10%. Your credit's shot because of all the debt we've consumed from COVID and all the inflation over the last 4 years. You're still not going to be able to compete. which means it falls into her second thesis of this, where she wants to like build 3 million homes.
Sure.
Which is, where's that money going to come from to build those 3 million homes? And it just ends up pushing the 1% into more and more wealth versus the 99% who are still just trying to dig and catch up with the inflation and rates in the first issue.
What do you mean? Where's that money going to come from? We're going to tax unrealized capital gains, baby.
Watch all the leaders of these corporations just go across seas, right?
Thank
They'll
you.
end up in Somalia or something like that.
He's actually a secret agent. He's been watching all the gains we've been making in crypto. He's like, I'm coming for you.
I don't know why I'm so broke as like a secret agent for like another company in crypto. I'm just like also still driving the car that I'm driving.
So if it's not tariffs, we've gone past the election. So what's the main is there a part of this where you've just only voted blue and you wanted to remain that way?
You know, I don't think so. I think a lot of Trump's sort of like mannerisms and sensibility, and then of course so he threw Roe v. Wade back to the states. He claims that, and I just think that's like
what's wrong
horrible.
with that though?
We shouldn't like.
Well, wait a minute. He didn't do it. The Supreme Court did.
Yeah.
Right, but it was
it
was judges that he appointed, almost 3 of them.
Conservative
Which,
judges.
by the way, talk about. So I'm like, people who don't know me, I'm like a gamer first and foremost. I care about like game theory optimal. Talk about game theory optimal play on the Republican Party. In 2015, to deny Merrick Garland because you shouldn't appoint Supreme Court justices in a lame duck year. Meanwhile, Trump did 3 of those. That's like insane, by the way.
It's bad luck for Democrats. I think we need term limits. I actually agree.
It's not bad luck. It's literally somebody on the Republican side is like strategizing. It was game theory optimal.
Yeah. And they
really
played their
glad they
hand,
did
but the end of the day, there is no term limits, right? So they purposely elect young, judges that are going to have a lot different beliefs than majority of individuals. But either way, going back to let's just go back to the state-based issue, because I love talking about this, because I think one of the biggest reasons people are voting for Kamala Harris is they're mad at the abortion issue. Most people, voting for abortion, still have access to abortion in their current
It's
state.
huge. It's why it's a big part of the reason why people are saying Iowa might go blue for the first time.
But 2, there's a 5, maybe 10% chance that Kamala Harris would even have a shot at overturning the issues that existed within the Supreme Court ruling.
Sure, but it's on her docket. It's like not on Trump's. Trump says that he's done. He left it up to the states, and it's like over with it.
So my point would be, though, voters are voting on something that has a near 0 chance of actually going through. So is that a valid reason to vote for her, even if that means economically they're going to be impacted worse?
Well, so they could. I mean, you have to understand that it's like within reason that they could have read Harris's tax policies. They're excited about the child, first time having a child, first time homeowner credit. They're at like a stage in my life where in the next 4 years I might have a kid. I might try to buy a home, right? So you have to admit that it's reasonable that they could read those policies and think that it's good for them. In addition to that, they can, look at the sort of. It's not unclear where both of them stand on abortion rights, right? Like Trump says he's finished and that he left it up to the court, who left it up to the states, which is exactly where he wants it to be. But I think the American people are unhappy with that. You see, in Iowa, I think if Iowa goes blue, it's a direct response to the draconian 6-week ban that they instituted.
You ready for I think a point maybe you haven't heard?
Sure.
I think that's a violation of our First Amendment to put a federal ban on or federal rights to being able to have an abortion.
Okay.
The reason for this and why I think it's good to be left up to the states is because if you're going to put a blanket, you can get an abortion no matter where you are in your states, it's removing the freedom of speech and choice and right to religion within the First Amendment. So in a state like Idaho that might be heavily religious and be completely against that, the government officials, their senators, everybody within that state, should they or should they not be able to have a right to vote in a democratic state for the belief of not having that abortion access? And I want to add on top of that too is you can't say that there's a blanket. The argument gets thrown out when you say my body, my choice because of the COVID issues where Joe Biden and the government literally said, if you don't get a vaccine shot, you can't work for us and you lose your job.
Sure.
So I guess to summarize that question here is, are you against the freedom of religion within a state? And do you believe their voice does not matter, even if they believe it's against their religion?
A state doesn't have a religion, right? There's like a separation of church and state. And so even if everybody in Iowa...
Not talking about the separation. I'm just talking about individual right. So you have the right to practice whatever religion you want.
Sure.
Correct?
Yeah.
So does your right to practice whatever your religion you want get completely censored and shut down when it comes to the government?
Definitely not. Certainly not. And in fact, if it's like a religious necessity that you don't have an abortion, then I have really good news for you, and it's that you don't have to have one. Right?
So but again, this is why I think it's a very nuanced discussion. But so if, let's say, 100, 200 million Americans are religious and believe against abortion,
Sure.
are they just not allowed to vote on that?
So there's some things that you have to concede that we shouldn't be allowed to vote on, right? Like one of them that's like pretty inflammatory, but it was a states' rights issue until it wasn't.
You just said we need to concede our First Amendment right.
For some things, we can't just vote to like make them legal because they violate human rights.
Wouldn't it violate human rights to force people to be vaccinated?
Wouldn't it violate? We're talking about abortions right now.
I'm saying
about body
that
and
conversation
choice.
got.
Well, hold on.
I'm just talking about my body, my choice in this
Yeah.
outcome here. So this is. I love this conversation because I don't think there's an answer. By the way, I don't think there's an answer because you're saying there's a point to your First Amendment that you're not allowed to have. That you have to concede that right when it comes to a specific belief.
The thing about it is, first of all, yes, and then second of all, the thing about what you just said is, you have to be vaccinated or what, or you lose your job. I worked for Amazon. I had to get vaccinated. I mean, that's just true. And like everybody worked at Amazon had to get vaccinated. And a lot of them didn't want to do it because a lot of them were, Black Americans who are still nervous about vaccinations because of that time that it really went poorly for them. But they had to get it or they could quit working at Amazon, right? They're not putting you in jail for not being vaccinated. They're saying you can't work for the government.
So that's my reasoning, is because in 2020, we saw what the left are trying to do with my body, my choice.
Sure.
They threw that completely out the window when it came to their religious belief. I'm gonna consider the vaccination and COVID a religion.
That's
and what
crazy.
I mean by that, here's my valid reasoning for this.
That's crazy.
Okay, here's the reasoning for this.
Okay.
People blindly, without any statistical reasoning or evidence, had faith in doctors that was what was correct. They had faith in Joe Biden. They had faith in Rachel Maddow that if you got the vaccine, you couldn't get COVID. Those were their words. Trump said, or not Trump said, actually don't do bleach or whatever it was. That was crazy. But so to the point to that is when now it comes to now my body, my choice, why didn't it myself, as a man, by the way, it doesn't matter who you are, man, woman, whatever, have the validity, that's the same argument you're making for abortion is completely contradicted by the point of a forced vaccination.
A forced vaccination or you lose your job. They're not like, putting you in jail or anything like that.
That's actually a nuanced conversation. If you saw, police did apprehend people for not having paperwork in New York, and there was a push from the administrative state to get that paper checking process in real time on the ground. So the conversation that wasn't happening, that's not true. It's that it wasn't being enforced by police officers. So when we have that kind of conversation and say, oh, no, they weren't trying to force it. They were trying to force it. Absolutely.
Okay.
It was just the fact that you still had police officers that were following the Constitution, right? So, that's kind of a nuanced subject.
Well, I got a couple questions here. I'm just curious because you talked a few different. You were talking about First Amendment, and then you were talking about a democracy a little bit earlier, and you used that Winston Churchill quote. And I just wanted to come back to you and ask: do you think the United States of America is a democracy?
This is a question that like I would hate for it to be a gotcha, right? Definitionally, the United States of America is a republic democracy where we elect representatives to go work in the House and then also work in the Senate that carry out theoretically the will of the American people. Does that always happen? Obviously not, but that's like the system we have right now. So
hold up. I wasn't done with that previous conversation. There was a second part of that I wanted to finish it before we move on was the because people are saying, Josh, what are you trying to argue here? Because now the point is you're saying, let's say this, okay, right? You can't have the right to vote on against abortion in the States.
Okay.
So you're pretty much asking, and this is why I think it's against the First Amendment here, is what defines a baby. Some people are going to say a baby is within the womb. The religion believes that at conception, that is a child, and that has a human life to it and has a human right.
Sure.
Correct? So again, what the conversation come down here, and what this is going to blow people's mind right here. I'm pro-choice to an extent within the 3-month range, which again, Donald Trump is for. He's for IVF. He is for if it's in specific medical issues or, of course, grape. Can't say the exact word. You guys know what I'm getting at here. But my point is it's an invasion of the First Amendment right and a constitutional right in the United States of America to deny that religious belief. And again, you're coming back down to whether or not a baby is a life form in the womb or not.
Sure.
And I can bring up multiple examples of, for example, a pregnant woman that is religious that believes she is carrying a child, a human life, or is shot and killed. does she go to jail for being, or does the shooter go to jail for killing one person, one homicide, or a double homicide? And there's court rulings where there's been double homicides because of that. So my point to that argument was, guys, that I truly don't believe, I believe it needs to remain a state-based issue because of how nuanced the conversation is, and what it's doing is only holding back Americans from discussing the real issues, which are policy-based efforts to, whether it's reduce inflation, the cost of living, and immediately impact your home on a daily individual basis. Again, that was all my point was to the abortion topic. One, again, I think it's going to be near impossible for her to even overturn the Supreme Court's decisions. And then once again, if she does and we get there, I believe it's an invasion and it's against the First Amendment of our Constitution of the United States. That's my reasoning for it.
I just don't see it that way. I think there's lots of things that you would agree states shouldn't be able to vote on, right? Like if I said, like, should a state be able to vote and make illegal interracial marriage? You would say, of course not. That's like ridiculous. States can't eliminate human rights, and the right to medical procedure without government intervention is, in my opinion, should be a human right.
Wait. Without government intervention? So you think less government is better?
Of course.
Okay, so why do you want to give more power to the federal government?
Give more power to the federal government?
I'm saying the federal government should regulate medical procedures.
And again, they're deciding whether or not a baby is considered a life form.
I'm saying the federal government shouldn't be the government, state or federal, shouldn't be able to outlaw